its commitment to peace, order, and good government a daily reality. A nation of democratic principles, the central government is formed by the will of the people. Citizens send men and women to the capital city to make the laws of the land. Their work is done on Parliament Hill, the single most potent symbol of the Canadian democracy. And tonight, we're here to report on who you've decided to empower to lead us all. We've seen what happened in Atlantic Canada. Now, the polls are closing from Quebec through Alberta. 237 seats at stake. It's crunch time.
Canada votes. The decision. From Ottawa, here again is Peter Mansbridge.
And good evening once again. Well, if you've been watching for the last 3 or 3.5 hours, you know what's at stake tonight. The election in Canada, it is a tight one, very close. Overall, the riding right now, the riding reports show 22 Liberals elected already in Atlantic Canada, 7 Conservatives, 3 NDP, and 1 for the Bloc Québécois. That is in a riding that was on the early time zone for Quebec. Joining us now, as you just saw, from Central Nova, where he was successful tonight, the former leader of the PC party, now the deputy leader of the Conservative Party, Peter MacKay, and we do congratulate you on your victory tonight. And also from King's Hants, another Nova Scotia riding, we have Scott Brison joining us. Formerly, 2 former caucus mates in the old PC party, but split their ways. Peter MacKay going with the Conservatives, Scott Brison going with the Liberals. Let's get a sense from both of you, those opening results out of Atlantic Canada. How do they set the stage for what we're about to witness coming in? Peter MacKay, first of all.
Well, I think the big numbers that are about to come in will be very encouraging for the Conservative Party. We would have liked to have picked up more seats here in Atlantic Canada, but we're returning with a good number of Conservatives. I've stayed with my party. I've stayed loyal to the principles of the Progressive Conservative Party, which are very much a part of this new Conservative Party. And we're looking forward to those results from Ontario, from the West, to bringing the type of government that Canadians deserve. One that I think the Canadians can be proud of again.
How concerned were you that the vote for the Conservative Party dropped significantly than the combined totals of both the old PC and the Alliance Party from the last election?
Well, I think the negative advertising and the attack-style ads and the attempts to vilify Stephen Harper in particular sadly had an impact here in Atlantic Canada. But I think the true tale of the tape is yet to be told. When we get into Ontario and the West, these are the type of significant numbers that will tip the balance in our favor, and we're very hopeful and very optimistic that we'll be forming a government. We've worked very hard at this. We've had to coalesce very quickly around the new leader, around the party itself, and there's been extraordinary efforts made. This has been a team effort right across this country. We're looking forward to those results as we get into the latter part of the evening.
Well, let's go over to Wolfville, where Scott Brison, also a victor tonight, but making a different kind of decision about where his party loyalties lie. Scott Brison, you've heard Peter MacKay. How do you look at these results tonight and what they may mean for the rest of the country?
Well, Stephen Harper has rejected the moderate, centrist, progressive values that not only have defined our country, but also defined the former Progressive Conservative Party. And in Atlantic Canada, moderate, centrist, progressive Atlantic Canadians have rejected Stephen Harper, and that's pretty clear tonight. And I think that we're going to see that kind of trend across the country as people realize that they're electing a prime minister, not trying to punish a party. And I think that we're going to do very well tonight, and it's pretty clear that the merger of the two parties has not resulted in a party that resembles the old Progressive Conservative Party to Atlantic Canadian voters.
Right, but how reflective of what we've seen in Atlantic Canada is what we're likely to see in the rest of the country? You're quite right. It doesn't appear that the merger has worked in Atlantic Canada, at least not yet. But what about the rest of the country? There have been significant signals in the last few weeks that things are going pretty well for that new combined party.
I think it's going to be a long night and an interesting night. but I think that for a lot of moderate, centrist, progressive, conservative voters who believe in the kind of vision of a Joe Clark or a Robert Stanfield, that this new party with people like Randy White and Cheryl Gallant and Scott Reed and their positions on bilingualism and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and multiculturalism, equalization, capital punishment,
Okay, you're
those
rattling
are
off.
those are the kinds of social issues that are going to be very difficult. I can't imagine Marjorie Le Breton sitting next to Myron Thompson at the first policy conference and talking about a woman's right to choose.
You know, listening to the two of you talk, clearly still, you know, fighting the campaign. I know you may be trying to influence voters who still have that opportunity in BC, but as two former caucus colleagues, two people who sat together, how difficult is it now when you seem to be so different on all the issues and, you know, not very admiring of each other's parties at this particular point? How difficult is that on a personal basis? Scott Bryson?
Well, the reality is... Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
Well, thank you, Peter. The fact is that Peter and I made different choices, and Peter chose his party. I chose to remain a member of a moderate, centrist, progressive party, and that there's nothing. I don't begrudge Peter's choice. I don't think he begrudges mine. I mean, Peter supports capital punishment, you know, so he can work with those people. Bob Stanfield didn't support capital punishment. John Diefenbaker didn't support capital punishment. Brian Mulroney didn't support capital punishment. Joe Clark didn't. Peter supports capital punishment. Maybe on social issues, Peter's closer to those people. I don't know, but I know I'm very happy and comfortable in a moderate, centrist political party that's going to build a better Canada.
All right, Peter. Okay.
Well, Scott clearly is having fun, taking more liberties with the truth, distorting the record as he's done since he left the Progressive Conservative Party. People like Marjorie Le Breton that went down and campaigned against him, I think he's still upset about that. Yeah. But, you know, the reality is we're going to be into a result, an election result, that I think Scott's going to be very disappointed with. He's going to be returning back to the opposition side. He'll have a chance to reflect on his decisions with his colleagues. And, you know, there's a lot of election results yet to come in. But, you know, the people of Kings Hants have made a decision. Scott made his decision. He's absolutely right. I can live, I can sleep with my conscience. I know full well that this was the right decision for the country, for myself, for the party, and we have a competitive electoral system again that'll restore democracy. Canadians will ultimately have their decision at the end of the night.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it at that. We do know that you're both coming back to Ottawa. We only have to determine now which side of the House each of you will be sitting on, and I'm sure the debate between the two of you will continue no matter which side you're on. Appreciate your time. Thanks very much. Congratulations to you both for winning. Peter MacKay, Central Nova, Scott Bryson in Kings Hants. All right, as you can tell from the bottom of your screen, we are starting to see some of the results coming in already. The early results from the polls that have closed just in the last few minutes from Quebec to Alberta. We're going to start in Toronto, where Don Newman is watching those 106 seats in Ontario for some early numbers here. Don.
Well, Peter, they are early numbers, but maybe they are setting a bit of a trend. Let's take a very fast look as we see the early results coming in from around the province. In this riding, London North Centre, Joe Fontana. He has been there since 1988. He has a slim lead, as you can see, as the first poll comes in over Tim Gatton of the Conservatives. That's a riding, though, that some people have thought is in play. If you look in the Parry Sound Muskoka region, there you see Andy Mitchell. He is the Minister of Indian and Northern Affairs. He had a big race in 1997 when he beat Lou McKenzie. One poll again, but he's off to not a bad shot there. He's only got a lead of one, but at least he's not second. He's first over Keith Montgomery. And then look at this riding. This is very interesting. Kenora, one of 157 polls. Again, just one vote lead. Roger Valley is the Liberal candidate. He is succeeding Bob Nault, who was the Minister of Indian and Northern Affairs in the Chrétien government. Susan Barclay has the lead. Why is this an interesting riding? Because provincially, the same riding, basically the same riding, is the seat for NDP leader Howard Hampton. So a lot of interest way up there in the last riding, in the most northwesterly riding in the province, but that's how it's breaking out very quickly with the first polls. Peter.
All right, Don, thanks very much. Look at that. The first result coming out of Toronto, Danforth. This is, as Don was cautioning us on those other ridings, this is very early, but this is a race we're going to be watching closely throughout the evening. Dennis Mills is the incumbent. Jack Layton, of course, the leader of the NDP. The first poll that's reporting here shows Mills with an early lead. We expect this one to be close throughout the evening, that it quite likely will go back and forth. We'll be on top of it, monitoring it for you. Obviously an important riding for both these gentlemen, especially important for the NDP with their leader running. So let's look at some overall numbers here right now in terms of the way things have progressed so far in the evening. This is the seat change graphic that we'll be showing you throughout the evening. Right now, you saw earlier, perhaps from Atlantic Canada, that the Liberals were up a number of seats based on the Atlantic Canada results. They're already losing seats now in a couple of places. And this is where they're having problems with them. The Liberals are up 2 seats overall on the evening so far. But once again, just starting the big roll of numbers coming from central Canada and from the prairies. So we'll keep an eye on that. Our political pundits, our members of the different parties are joining us once again. Mike Robinson, Don Black, and Tim Power. Early going, but a fascinating discussion between 2 former colleagues there, and Scott Bryson and Peter MacKay.
Yes, very lively, and both obviously have a point of view. No, it was very interesting. I mean, I know Atlantic Canada politicians do have a way of expressing themselves very eloquently. So it was very good.
I love the way they were pitching their debate.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
out to those who still had an opportunity to vote, and BC, Don, once again being this critical battleground for later in the evening. Everybody knows or is convinced this is going to be close in spite of what we're looking at in numbers right now. But it's going to be close by the time it gets to BC.
Yeah, BC may indeed be the deciding factor in this election for the first time in a long, long time.
Tim?
I think we're going to see some significant change in Ontario. Certainly there are a number of ridings due to vote splitting that had gone Liberal in the past we expect to come back. And as Peter said, I think it's a little bit premature, as Scott was doing, and Scott's never met a microphone he doesn't love, to suggest that
Amazing how many people you can say that about around this town, right? I mean, there's a lot of them like that microphone.
There are a few people around like that, but I think as we get into Ontario and head out west, we'll see some significant gains and see the proof of the value of the merger.
I think Peter was the one that was actually claiming victory in the debate. Actually, he was the one that was talking about forming the government. So I think there's maybe a little bit of self-confidence, maybe overconfidence. We'll see as the night progresses.
Well, we'd only get that from the Liberals, wouldn't we now?
All right, we'll be back to you when we have more results from Ontario to chew on and get the significance on. Obviously, Ontario and Quebec, with so many seats at stake, could very well set the pattern up as we roll through the prairies heading towards BC. Keith, I know you wanted in here on a point here as well.
Well, no, I actually, just to repeat some of the points that we have heard, and obviously, you know, these things are going to come in very, very quickly, but I'm going to be constantly interested to see what that vote share number is for both the Conservative Party and the NDP. And what I'll be looking for is ridings where the NDP actually turns out to be a spoiler. This is something the Liberals have to worry about in this election that they haven't had to worry about in the last 3, and that is splitting the vote on the left. We've talked a lot about splitting the vote on the right, but when we saw so much higher number in Atlantic Canada for the NDP, and we think it may be higher still in Ontario, that can have an impact on seats that's adverse for the Liberals, even if the NDP doesn't win them, by creating those splits.
All right. As you watch these numbers starting to move rather dramatically here, and clearly the Liberals getting the benefit of the early returns that are coming in so far in this wide swath of votes that are being counted right now. Be cautious. Don't make any immediate observations on what you're seeing here, because they are early returns, and we're judging them as they come in across the country. But right now, the Liberals have a significant lead. Expect to see these numbers change fairly quickly. You see an other on the board. We'll track that one down. That would be somebody other than one of the mainline parties. It could also, could be the Green Party. It could be any number of parties. But once again, this is based very early on the returns coming in so far. Let's go out to Calgary, where Carol McNeil is watching the results coming in from the prairies, and there are already a couple of interesting ones there. Carol.
Yes, there are, in fact, and both of them from Saskatchewan, Peter. Let's take a look. First of all, we're going to take a look at the riding of Palliser, which I mentioned earlier just a few minutes ago. This is Palliser, Saskatchewan. It's been held for 2 terms by Dick Proctor of the NDP, the incumbent, but it's said to be a tight three-way race here tonight, and you're seeing that in the early returns. Dick Proctor can't take anything for granted, because last time it was a squeaker. He only won by 209 votes, and vote splitting among the Conservatives allowed that win. So we'll be watching that one, although he has taken the lead, as you say, Too early to tell anything. Let's move on to Wascana, where Ralph Goodale is trailing Doug Cryer, the Conservative candidate. But again, it's very early. Goodale, of course, this is an interesting riding to watch because Ralph Goodale is the finance minister and one of the most powerful Western members of the Martin cabinet. So we'll be watching this one very closely as well. Very early returns, very few ridings reporting so far, Peter, but we're on it.
All right, Carol, thanks very much. Well, if you're wondering what that other is, we better catch this while we can because somehow I don't think it's going to be around very long. This is the riding of Mississauga East, that's Cooksville, Mississauga East, Cooksville in Ontario, west of Toronto, where the Cambridgeshire candidate for the Marxist-Leninist Party is in the lead on 2 of 228 polls. That's not to suggest that the ML candidate doesn't have a chance of winning tonight, but it would be, let's say, shocking if that is the end result. But doing well after the first couple of polls in Mississauga East, Cooksville. Gilles Duceppe in Montreal tonight, watching the returns coming in. Must be happy with the first gain for the Bloc from the Liberals in Gaspé. Watching, obviously, the variety of the different networks in Quebec tonight, keeping on top of the results as they come in. That's Gilles Duceppe in Montreal, the leader of the Bloc Québécois, who hopes at the end of this evening to play a significant role in terms of how the government is formed, especially if it is a minority government, as many people suspect. Earlier on this evening, we told you that we're going to be looking at a number of specific ridings, 5 across the country, where Donna Dasco from Environics has been doing some voting day surveys. She correctly gave us a sense of what to expect would happen in King's Hants. She's looking at a couple of Ontario ridings. We're going to set them up first of all now. With this one, Etobicoke Lakeshore, it's just a Toronto riding. Here's Andrew Younghusband.
The urban riding of Etobicoke Lakeshore, located on the western edge of Hogtown, could have new representation if the merger between the Alliance Party and the Progressive Conservatives does what it was supposed to do, namely, unite the right. If you could only use one word to describe the constituents of Etobicoke Lakeshore, it would have to be
Torontonians.
The languages here are
English, Slovak,
Bengali. The incumbent party is
Liberal.
The average household annual income is
$82,000.
And the favorite donut is
cheese scone.
Well, la-ti-da.
Jean is our candidate.
Liberal Jean Augustine has won every election in Etobicoke Lakeshore since 1993. But this year, a united right could be her downfall. Augustine is running against John Capobianco, a man who is instrumental in getting the Progressive Conservatives to slide in bed with the Alliance Party. What we wanted Environics to find out was, will voters who voted for the right wing in the last election stay with the right wing in this election, even though both of their old parties are now gone?
We don't really know enough about the new Conservative Party to make an informed decision.
I see a lot of Stephen Harper. I don't see enough of the old PCs, the old Tories.
I'm much more impressed with them now than I was before. I think they've picked a stronger leader than they had in the past.
John Capobianco knows that two rights don't make a wrong. Two rights make one single party that could make him a very powerful politician. For CBC News, I'm Andrew Younghusband.
All right, we're watching the numbers continue to roll up already, coming out from different parts of the Quebec to Ontario swath. 47 Liberals leading or elected, 14 Conservatives, 9 NDP, 6 Bloc, and that one riding in Mississauga East where the Marxist-Leninists are in the early lead. Let's talk Etobicoke Lakeshore because it's an important riding to watch. Donna, what did you find in the voting survey there?
Well, we found that in this riding, the Liberals still look to be pretty strong. The other two parties have kind of come together. 80% of supporters of the old Tory party and the old Alliance Party are coming together to vote for the Conservative Party. But at the same time, the Liberals seem to be sticking with Jean Augustine. This is a City of Toronto riding. This is a riding in Metro Toronto. Liberals are strong here. They've always been strong here, and it looks as if the Liberals are going to hang on. As far as the new Tory party goes, it has a mixed image. Some people, about a third of the voters, think that it looks more like the Alliance Party than it does like the old Tory party, so there's a bit of a problem there with the image of that party. But on the side of the Liberals, you see the strengths of their campaign in this riding. The image of the party, concern about health care, and also a stronger image for the Prime Minister in this riding than in the other ridings. So if you put all those things together, it looks as if the Liberals may hold this riding.
All right, Alan, Etobicoke Lakeshore, why is that an important one to look at?
Well, the fact of the matter is, for the Conservatives to win a plurality of seats when you take out 75 out of the province of Quebec, which everyone concedes they don't win, is that they really have to win not the 905 and the Central Ontario seats. Those are the slam dunks. They've got to start getting into the urban centres. And the Etobicoke seats, the Scarborough seats, the Mississauga seats, an Oshawa seat, which we'll talk about later on, are emblematic of those. What it also shows is how powerful the Liberal coalition is in major urban centres, Toronto specifically. That Donna said the Liberals have held together, and it is a coalition, disproportionately women, big, strong skew, females supporting Augustine, the very poor, the very wealthy, and young people. Tough to beat.
All right. Well, let's get a sense on how those Ontario numbers are starting to look already, because we're starting now to see a real chunk of them coming in, and it gives us a sense of whether or not the Liberals are holding their core or whether or not the Conservatives are starting to make breakthroughs. Looking at those numbers, it would seem to suggest they're starting to make some, but let's find out from Don Newman how significant they are. Don.
All right, Peter, let's look first at the party standings now in Ontario, the Conservatives particularly. How are they doing? Well, they put the parties together to try and break through in Ontario. So far, well, they're not doing fabulously well, but they are leading in 7, and they only had 2 seats, the Canadian Alliance, after the last election, and the PCs won 1 in the by-election. So they're already doing better than they were. Let's look at some ridings where, early on at least, they have the lead. This is the riding of Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock, and there you see Barry Devlin of the Conservatives is leading. John O'Reilly, who won the riding in 1993, was the first Liberal to win the riding since Confederation. He is trailing by 11 votes at the moment. This is going to be a tough fight for John O'Reilly if history is any lesson now that the Conservatives are back as one party. In Leeds, Grenville, this was the closest race last time around in 2000. Joe Jordan suddenly, though, has jumped into a lead of 26, and that is just about half of what he won the riding from Gord Brown, pardon me, in 2000. Brown had the lead early on, but suddenly Joe Jordan is back in. Maybe we'll have another recount there before we're through, although most people thought that when the parties were together, that would be a Conservative seat. Nipissing, Temiskaming. Bob Wood was the Liberal member there. He has not run this time around. And so Al MacDonald, a former member of the Ontario Legislature, a Conservative, has the lead there. Only 39, 3 of 216 polls. But we'll see how that one plays out. Northern Ontario usually good for the Liberals. And this is an interesting one. Cheryl Gallant, there she's running second at the moment. She was one of 2 Canadian Alliance members elected in 2000. She is controversial. You know, during the campaign she talked about abortion. Then we didn't see her for a while in the campaign. She is now trailing at the moment. That was a very close race last time around. It could be again. But a surprise, I think, that Cheryl Gallant has now dropped into second place. We'll have to watch that one very carefully as we watch all 106 ridings here in Ontario. Peter.
All right, Don, thank you. Fascinating to watch this because the Liberals on the early vote counts so far in Ontario are doing very well, as Don has pointed out. Let's do a breakout in terms of the share of vote counted so far in Ontario. And I caution you, we've only seen about 20,000 votes counted so far in Ontario, which is a lot of votes when you consider how polls are done. But there are going to be millions counted in Quebec, in Ontario, before the end of this evening. But so far, the Liberals have a wide lead in the share of vote, about 15 percentage points over the Conservative Party. So 43-28, roughly speaking. The NDP doing well in Ontario, 22% and change, and starting to show that in a number of seats, as you can see at the bottom of your screen, as they are in third place, leading or elected in 14. Other parties showing around 6%. But the story at this hour, and there's no doubt about it, Keith, the Liberals are breaking out into significant leads on the early voting in a lot of Ontario ridings. And you saw with Don's report that there were in many ridings, very few votes have been counted yet, but still it shows them leading significantly in Ontario.
It can't last if for no other reason than that NDP number in the vote share is up so dramatically that's got to start having an impact somewhere, cutting away at the Liberal strength on the left. I think that Conservatives might still be looking for something more in terms of their vote share, not just the seats that they're leading in, because that vote share is not a very promising one for them. But something has obviously changed in Ontario, and I think, you know, all we can say is that it's early yet. It hasn't shown up yet, but it will.
Okay, but of 60-odd seats reporting already in Ontario, which is more than half of the seats, the Liberals have the lead in 45 of them, which is not insignificant at this point. Tim, your face is looking a little long here.
Oh, it's early, Peter. What I'm looking at, though, is we do have, according to your numbers, a lead in 15 seats. I think that's fantastic. It's a long night yet, as Keith has said, so I'm sure my smile will be back shortly.
Mike, what do you make of what we've seen so far?
Well, it's very early days, and I really wouldn't read a lot into it till we see more ridings come in. But clearly, it's encouraging. What's encouraging is some of the ridings where, frankly, I thought that the combination of Conservative and Alliance voters would be problematic, like Joe Jordan. He still seems to be competitive in the latest numbers, so there's some encouraging signs, but it's early days. I'd like to see a few more votes in before we start drawing any conclusions.
Well, a 51-seat lead at this hour, 25 minutes after the polls have closed between Quebec and Alberta, is a comfortable Liberal lead at this point. But as everybody is cautioning us, the votes that have been counted so far are slim. But nevertheless, the Liberals, significant lead. Let's go to Montreal, see how things are unfolding in Quebec. We see the big block number in there already of 15 seats where they're leading or elected. Susan.
Yes, Peter. Well, we are watching an interesting race at this early point in the evening with some probably excited Liberals looking at these early numbers. Let's start with the overall provincial picture with the early results that we've seen. These towers are going back and forth here with the right now the Bloc Québécois in the lead, leading with 15, but the Liberals close behind at 13. And now let's look at some of the individual ridings. Beginning with Beauport, which is in the Quebec City area, Dennis Dawson is a star candidate, a close advisor to Paul Martin. This is expected to be a tight race. Early results so far, and he is in the lead over the Bloc's Christian Simard. And now we go to the riding of Chicoutimi-Le Fjord, which is in the northern Lac-Saint-Jean area, which Canadian viewers will know is the heartland of sovereignty in this province. The Bloc Québécois is in the lead at this point over André Harvey, who holds the seat. André Harvey is a very popular MP for the Liberals. He's held the seat for many, many years. In fact, he held it for a while as a Conservative. But tonight, so far, early results, the Bloc in the lead. And finally, Saint-Lambert, one of the 17 seats in the Beltway around Montreal. And the Liberal right now, Yolande Thibault, she won this riding in 2000 for the Liberals. She's in a lead very early on in the evening, but that's something that the Liberals would like to see. No one was expecting, Peter, that we would see those bars so close. And as we say, it is early, but it's probably giving some Liberals in this province some reason to be optimistic.
All right, Susan, thanks very much. In Montreal, the Liberals into triple figures now. Keep in mind, these are leading or elected, but it's starting to make you wonder about all those predictions of the really close race that was going to take place tonight. We know that the Conservatives, a lot of their strongholds are yet to report, especially in the West, but they were going to have to make significant moves in Ontario if they were going to make this close. So far, they are picking up seats, of that there is no doubt, but it's only in the mid-teens right now, and it was going to have to be a lot more than that. The Liberals are leading or elected in 65 of Ontario's 106 seats, and there are still about 20 of them yet to report. So the Liberals are making significant headway through Ontario. If the race was going to be close in Ontario, it is not showing it so far on this evening. In Montreal, Wendy Mesley is watching the Martin headquarters tonight. Wendy.
Something amazing has happened. Just 15 minutes ago, this room was empty. Now it's half full. It makes the back of the camera look full anyway. And every time a fresh result comes up, there is this huge roar of applause. They're quite surprised and quite happy, not to surprise you. And with me is Stephen McKinnon, who is the communications director for the campaign, and he's also deputy director of the national for the party. What do you think of the results tonight?
Well, we have a lot of work to do yet. We have a lot of ground.
Come on, you've got to be happy about what you see.
Well, we're encouraged by this trend. British Columbia hasn't even finished voting yet, so we have a lot of work to do in the country. We're encouraged by these early returns, but certainly there's nobody's popping the champagne corks yet.
How much more do you need?
Well, we need 155 for a majority, so we hope that we can get there, but obviously that's going to be a tough challenge.
Boy, they're hard to please. Back to you, Peter.
All right, Wendy, thanks very much. Well, you're wondering about BC. The clock is now striking 10 here on Parliament Hill in the nation's capital, and that means the polls are closing in British Columbia, and we'll start getting results there very shortly. These numbers are, let's say they don't bear any relationship to all the different surveys you saw during the life of the campaign and seat projections that you saw that were very, very close. Now, you know, it's hard to keep saying in the face of those numbers. It's early in the evening and the results are small to be basing any assessments on. But at this point, it's certainly looking like a very, very good night for the Liberals as they're leading or elected in 110 seats. And once again, seeming to build that massive lead that they have at this hour. It's going to change as Conservative seats start to be reflected in the West. But building it in Ontario. Don Newman's watching it. Don.
Well, Peter, you're right. They may not be running the table quite in Ontario, but they're doing very well. Still early going, still not too many polls reporting. But let's look at the party standings so far in Ontario as we have them. And there you see elected in 1, but leading in 66. The Conservatives only leading in 15, and the NDP doing fairly well for the NDP, leading in 10 seats in Ontario. Let's look at some of the ridings, cabinet minister ridings, where we thought there may be a tough fight for the Liberals, but so far, remember we said we'd watch Tony Valeri? Well, he has not a great lead, but he is in front in Hamilton East Stony Creek over Tony DiPaolo from the NDP. Heath was thought perhaps to be in trouble. What about this man, David Pratt, the defense minister? Most people thought he would be in trouble, to Pierre Poilievre, who was an aide to Stockwell Day. So far, though, with 3 of the polls reporting, 57 vote lead for David Pratt. And even in Haldimand, Norfolk, west of Hamilton, the agriculture minister, well, that's a lead of 1. I don't think he can put his feet up and have a cigar or anything yet, but 7 of 220 polls. He is ahead of Diane Finley. That is one we are going to be watching carefully. Bob Speller, we think, is in for a fight tonight. But as you can see, early going, the Liberals doing very well in Ontario. It looks not quite like it has in 93, 97, and 2000, but looking a lot better so far for the Liberals than anyone thought. Peter.
You're right about that, Don. One other fact to help you keep this in some context at this hour. In 2000, over 4 million Ontarians voted in the federal election that day, about 4.5 million. So far, we've counted about 120,000 votes in Ontario. So there's a long way to go, as you can see, as Don pointed out in some of those riding reports. A very limited number of votes in. It just so happens that in almost every case, the Liberals are doing very well on that. Tim, did you want to make a point on this?
Well, as you say, it's only early, and I'm starting to see a number of our numbers go up. Our Western results are coming in. It'll be interesting to see where we are 15 minutes from now, and I think we should be up a little bit higher at that point.
You better be.
We will be, Peter. Hope does spring eternal.
All right, 155 is what any party would need to form a majority of the 308 seats in the House of Commons. As you've heard all along, and including at the beginning of this broadcast, nobody expecting a majority on anybody's part tonight. The fight was over a minority government. We'll see how it plays out. The Liberal numbers, seeing interestingly here, now starting to rack back a little bit, but still a significant lead over the Conservatives, but as Tim points out, Conservative numbers starting to show on the board. So we'll see how this evening progresses. Could be interesting. No doubt about that. Carol McNeil's in Calgary watching the votes coming in on the prairies. Carol.
Yes, Saskatchewan remains an interesting story, Peter, and we were looking at a couple of ridings, and of course everything is so fluid and changing all the time. But a couple of ridings caught our attention because they are competitive and they are interesting for us in terms of the NDP and the relationship between the NDP and Liberals and whole issue of strategic voting. The party standings in Saskatchewan, as you can see, the Tories are leading and elected in 9, and that's somewhat substantially less leading and elected for the Liberals and then the Conservatives. Conservatives. I want to give you an example of a trend that's developing. First of all, or at least the last time we checked it was. But in Regina Capel, there is a lot of competition between Elise Hurley and Lauren Nystrom. And at one point she was leading, and now he's back to leading. And it was very interesting. By the way, she is David Hurley's sister, the right-hand man to Paul Martin in terms of strategy for this campaign. Lauren Nystrom, you know, you would think after all these years he would have nothing to worry about. But last time, he only won this race by 164 votes, despite being, you know, in Parliament since 1968. So this riding also has been NDP for a very long time. Taking a look at Saskatoon-Humboldt, this is interesting. The Liberals are leading here now as well, and the Conservatives are in second place, and the NDP has dropped to third. So it's very fluid at this point in time. At one point we were looking at it, and the NDP was in the lead. And taking a look at Ralph Goodale's riding, he has been declared elected. Ralph Goodale, the finance minister in the Paul Martin cabinet, has been declared elected in the riding of Wascana. He will be going back to Ottawa as an MP. What more? We don't know. We'll have to see.
All right, Carol, thanks very much. Carol McNeil in Calgary for us tonight, watching the Prairie results. Let's bring you up to date on where all the different party leaders stand at this hour in their ridings, because we've got results in all of them. You know, LaSalle-Aymar, which is Paul Martin's riding, the Bloc Québécois candidate is ahead of the sitting Prime Minister at this hour by 25 votes. In fact, all of Quebec, when you look at it, and many of them are early returns like this, and Susan will be giving us an update from Montreal shortly, but the Bloc is doing very well. They're leading in 42 of the 53 ridings reporting so far. So the Bloc's doing well, including in LaSalle-Aymar. So you have Paul Martin trailing. Stephen Harper, though, does not face that problem in Calgary Southwest. He's off to a quick and early lead in Calgary Southwest. No one expecting that there will be an issue there for him. And in fact, we'll probably likely see him declared elected very soon. In Toronto Danforth, this one is interesting. Dennis Mills said all along that he wasn't going to give up the fight easy against Jack Layton, the NDP leader. And so far, with 10 of a couple hundred polls reporting, Dennis Mills has the lead. It's 162 votes. Which isn't a handful. It's more than a handful, but it all depends in that riding in particular which polling stations are reporting. Big strength for the NDP in parts of the riding, big strength for Dennis Mills and others, so that one could take a while to play out. Now, in Laurier, the Quebec riding of Gilles Duceppe, he has a lead over the Liberal candidate, Gilles Duceppe, not expected to have any problems in Laurier. But let's get a little more on what's unfolding in Quebec on the numbers, because the Bloc, as you can tell down below on the graphic at the bottom of our screen, are already in the lead in 46 ridings. Their historic high under Lucien Bouchard was what, Susan, 54?
54 in 1993 when, with their ever-popular leader Lucien Bouchard, and that was pretty much a benchmark set for tonight. Will they beat that? And some pretty strong Bloc results coming in now. Peter, let's look at the overall provincial picture to start, and what we see, I think as you just said, they are leading, the Bloc Québécois in 46. You see the difference there graphically with the Liberals only on the board leading and elected in 11. Some interesting races in this province. Brome-Missisquoi is in the eastern townships. Those are the communities south of Montreal that extend to the U.S. border. The Bloc's Christian Ouellet there in the lead over a cabinet minister. Denis Paradis is the Minister of State responsible for financial institutions, and the Liberals have pretty much always been represented in the eastern townships. They've got 4 ridings now out of 7. They'll want to hang on to some here tonight. In Richmond, Arthabaska, an interesting riding because it's the only Conservative-held riding in the province, but the Conservative André Bachand didn't run. He didn't join the new Conservative Party, and tonight André Bellavance for the Bloc Québécois has the lead here, the Conservative in 3rd place. And in the riding of Saint-Maurice, formerly held by former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien, right now the Bloc Québécois Marcille Gagnon is in the lead here over the Liberals. Marie-Yves Bilodeau, the young woman who is seeking to win this race tonight. And, you know, former Prime Minister Chrétien campaigned a little bit for Marie-Yves Bilodeau, but Liberals have been saying for a while that they expected this riding to go to the Bloc tonight, and so far that's the trend in the early results that we've seen. Peter?
All right, Susan, thank you. If you've been watching over the last 10 minutes, I'm sure you've noticed what we've noticed. The Conservative number has been going up, and the Liberals appear somewhat frozen in the sort of 110 to 115 mark as it keeps bouncing around. But the Conservatives have come up with some of those Western numbers are starting to report, and also they are making more gains in Quebec. That music signals something that you should be aware of throughout the country. We're going to be using the right-hand screen of your television set to update you on a local riding. So in different parts of the country, it will reflect different results, but we're trying to continuously give you the results in every riding in your region. Let's check in with Don Newman in Toronto again to give us a sense of not only how the NDP is doing in terms of seats that they may be leading in, but also how their vote is affecting the overall numbers in Ontario. Don?
Well, thank you, Peter. The NDP is putting on a bit of a show in Ontario as well, not like the Liberals, mind you, but as we were looking at some of the results a few moments ago, look at the NDP standings in Ontario. They have 9 seats. They have actually been elected in one in Timmins James Bay, a man named Charlie Angus. Now that is a big increase from 2000 when they won only in Windsor. They had another Windsor by-election win since the last election. But look at that, their vote share. They have 20% of the vote, and that's gone up over 12% since 2000. Let's look at some of the ridings where the NDP are running well and have a good chance of pulling something off. No big surprise here, Ed Broadbent in his return to politics in Ottawa Centre. He has a 54-vote lead over Richard Mahoney, the Liberal candidate in Ottawa Centre. So Ed Broadbent's not home and dry yet, but getting his campaign and his comeback off to a good start in the early going. Sault Ste. Marie, this man's name is Tony Martin. He is not the singer, but he is leading Carmen Provenzano, the Liberal incumbent in that riding. With 40 of 203 polls, he has a lead of 353 votes, so that's a significant number of polls in, and the NDP in the lead in the Sault. Now, take a look at this riding, because this is something very interesting. This is Stan Keyes, a cabinet minister since December the 12th, a big Martin supporter, a former chair of the Liberal caucus. He is trailing Dave Christopherson by 856 votes. If you live in Hamilton, you know who Dave Christopherson is. He was a former cabinet minister in the Bob Rae government, 40 polls in there, so that's something worth looking at. And look at this. A moment ago, we were talking about how well Tony Valeri was doing, the transport minister. Well, now he trails by 533 votes to Tony DiPaolo. This, of course, the controversial riding where Sheila Copps wanted to be the candidate, and all of a sudden Tony Valeri goes from being in front to going significantly behind. Now, here, one other riding we should look at, and this is the riding that has elected an NDP member of Parliament. His name is Charlie Angus. He's known as the Bard of the North, and he has defeated the Liberal Raymond Chenier in Timmins James Bay. So the NDP won elected way up north, and very competitive down in the Hamilton region as well. Peter.
All right, Don, thank you. The Liberals leading are elected in 120 seats, 121 now. The Conservatives in 70, the Bloc in 53, approaching that 54 record set by Lucien Bouchard in 1993, the NDP in 19, and we have one Green Party member is in the lead in Vancouver Island North. One of the BC ridings that's just reported, but it's very early. We're talking a total of 10 votes cast so far in that poll, so we'll keep our eye on that one. Let's look at the Ontario story once again, because it helps tell us the big picture on those numbers at the bottom of your screen. You have the Liberals doing well in Ontario, but that well for them means only down 26 seats at the moment. The Conservatives are up 18 seats in the province of Ontario, the NDP up 8. But the Liberals, with the lead in 76 seats right now, 78 as we see the numbers change, that is a huge number for them. Not as big as it used to be, but has such an enormous influence on the overall numbers. Now let's break it away from the seat change in Ontario to the vote change in Ontario, and let's see where the votes are moving around. The Liberals had more than half the vote cast in the province last time around. This time, Keith, and this is interesting, the Liberals are down almost 9 percentage points But the Conservatives, so they were going to make inroads. It was all banked on the assumption that they could couple those votes together between the two old parties that merged into one. Here, they're not doing it.
No, and we said earlier in the program that there's a bit of magic about that 37.9%. It represents what the base of the Conservative Party should be. So this is not the outing that they were hoping to have here. The seat numbers show that the Liberals are having a very good night given the circumstances. But I'm still waiting to see the NDP, whose numbers up dramatically, really capitalize on that yet, because I don't think they have. I think that is going to be one of the important stories to watch through the night, particularly if the seat numbers start leveling off somewhere. If the NDP could get some action out of its vote share and a few more seats, it could dramatically change the whole outcome at the end of the evening.
And on the other hand, if the Liberals are able to hold on to these seats, coupled with what they think they can end up with in British Columbia, it's going to be the Liberals forming a minority government at the end of the day tonight. But, as we said, there's a long way to go before we suggest that, because there are still some close races, very close, and some early returns in many of them. Okay, from Ontario, let's look at the same story in Quebec. In terms of seat change, look at this. The Bloc Québécois up 21 seats to 54 at this hour. The Liberals are down 20, and the Conservatives have, what would that be? The Conservative seat in Quebec.
André Bachand from the last election won the seat for the Progressive Conservatives.
Yeah, right, from the last vote. Okay, so you've got the Bloc making a big movement in the province of Quebec, all at the expense of the Liberal Party. All right, well, starting to get some of those results as we tip one in terms of the Green, but that's already off the board. Let's go out to Ian Hannah-Mansing in Vancouver to bring us up to date on what we can say about the Vancouver results so far. Ian.
Well, of course, Peter, not a lot of assumptions in this election nationwide, certainly not in British Columbia either, but the Conservatives are hoping, at least, expecting perhaps to get a big boost in its numbers from BC. Polls here have been closed for about 15 minutes, and the very early indications for the party that they're leading with just a handful of votes counted. You see, of the 4 ridings that are reporting in these early minutes, the Conservatives are leading in all of those 4. I want to show you a couple of ridings on Vancouver Island, beginning with Nanaimo, Alberni. That's about mid-island for those of you who know Vancouver Island. And James Lunny, who won this riding for the Alliance last time around, is leading at this point. If you move a little further north, it's the same story in the riding of Vancouver Island North. Also an incumbent for the Canadian Alliance, now running for the Conservatives, leading there. What's interesting, and you don't see it on the board, is the Green Party was leading very early on. They're in 4th place now, and of course we're watching to see how the Greens do, because they may affect some of the close ridings. And in the northernmost riding in British Columbia, also an Alliance incumbent now running for the Conservatives, leading there as well. Another interesting thing about Skeena-Bulkley Valley is Miles Richardson, the Liberal candidate, and you can see just a handful of votes counted so far, is one of those so-called dream teamers for British Columbia. He was a former Haida leader, Aboriginal leader in that riding, and the Liberals' hope is that he can get more of the Aboriginal vote out, about 20% of that riding, and maybe make a difference there. But still early minutes in British Columbia. Peter?
All right, Ian, thanks very much. The caution is important to keep in mind. Of the ridings that you're seeing reflected on the bottom graphic there on your television screen. So I can tell you that 50 ridings at least are showing, when we calculate them through our computers, are showing leads of less than 100 votes. So when you've got that many ridings very much still at play, any number of things could move around. But not in Laurier, where the Bloc Québécois leader, Gilles Duceppe, has been declared elected on the strength of the significant and early lead of more than 500 votes that we've seen in Laurier, and everybody expects Gilles Duceppe to win already in that riding. So he's leading his party, it seems, tonight to a significant victories in Quebec. We can also tell you right now that in Hamilton Centre, this is a gain for the NDP, as the Cabinet Minister Stan Keyes has gone down to defeat. The whole Hamilton area, Don, has been a fascinating race to watch, influenced a lot by what happened to Sheila Copps, there's no doubt about that, but a gain for your party in Hamilton.
Looks like 2 seats there. I'm looking at the other Hamilton seat too, and we're well in the lead there.
And, a bit of history in Hamilton for the NDP.
Yes, there is.
Okay. The Bloc Québécois also winning, as you see here in Saint-Maurice Champlain. That is part of the old riding of Jean Chrétien's old riding in Saint-Maurice. up in the Shawinigan area. So Jean Chrétien riding goes to the Bloc Québécois. Alan, you've been crunching numbers, looking at a number of ridings and putting them into some historical perspective for us. Tell us.
Well, I think first that while we have to be cautious because there are so many close, the fact of the matter is that the Ipsos Reid poll, the ECOS poll, the last ones were done right on the eve of the election, had the Liberals 3 points ahead. Right now they're running 11% more in popular vote. There's been historically 5 bellwether ridings in Ontario that have never not gone with the government since 1979, every election. Don Valley East, St. Paul's, Guelph, Kitchener Centre, and Niagara Falls. Right now, all of them have Liberal leads.
So if that holds up through the rest of the evening?
Well, you're looking right now, I mean, it's 79-17 for the Tories leading over the Conservatives.
In the province of Ontario, that's right.
And the other numbers are quite massive in Toronto. I mean, all the Scarborough seats, the 5 Scarborough seats there are 60% Liberal vote. St. Paul's downtown, 60% Liberal vote.
Okay, and we got a hint of that coming out of Donna's survey on Etobicoke Lakeshore as well. Let's talk to one of the key Liberals involved in the Ontario campaign, Joe Volpe, who was an MP in the last Parliament, being re-elected tonight. He's with Joanna Remiliotis. Joanna.
Peter, political observers have described this riding as one where if the Liberals couldn't win here, they couldn't win anywhere. And tradition continued since 1963. That's the reaction to, obviously, another win here tonight. It's been a stronghold since 1963. Joe Volpe has held this riding since 1988, and he joins me now after counting the votes at home with family and your colleagues. How do you feel tonight?
Well, I feel great. I feel elated. I've got a great team. A great team is still out there counting the rest of those ballots, but it looks like we're going to come home free, and it's all a credit to the team.
You mentioned earlier, though, that this was going to be a competitive race.
Yes.
Can you tell me a bit about that?
Well, I thought it was going to be competitive simply because you had 2 teams that had joined into one and built a little bit of a critical mass. I'm talking about the Conservative Alliance group. But that critical mass didn't materialize. At least so far it hasn't demonstrated itself. And the public has demonstrated its confidence in me and the Liberal Party once again.
Now, you were named to the cabinet last December, and one of the portfolios was Minister of Ontario. So part of this campaign, you visited several ridings, and you got a sense of a great sense of anger from voters. Can you tell us about that?
Well, right up until the end of the first week and the beginning of the second week of the campaign, yes, there was palpable anger. A good portion of it, the majority of it, if not all of it, had to do with the public's reaction to the budget in Ontario. Not because the budget in itself was bad, it isn't for us to criticize, but the fact of the matter is it shook the public's view and confidence in the system and the structure of government, and so we had to deal with that.
Great. Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
Back to you, Peter.
All right, Joanna, thanks very much. With a favorable audience for Joe Volpe, obviously, in his campaign headquarters on an evening when the Liberals seem to be doing pretty well in Ontario, in spite of the fact they are losing seats, but they had enough room to spare in Ontario that they could lose a significant number and yet still end up with a big whack of seats in Ontario. They seem to be heading in that direction with the votes counted so far. This is interesting, LaSalle-Mar, where still the Bloc candidate, after a couple of polls here, is still ahead of Paul Martin. Wendy Mesley told us a little earlier in the evening that there was a point in the campaign that Liberals were quite worried that they were going to lose not only the 52 seats that already they are down in Quebec, but they were also worried at one point in the campaign that Paul Martin may be in trouble in his riding of LaSalle-Mar. Well, he is on the strength of these polls so far, but right now, Paul Martin trailing in LaSalle-Mar, which is not the picture you're seeing unfolding at the bottom of your screen. And we've seen enough. We've calculated the votes, and at this hour, 10:23 in the nation's capital, we are prepared to, at this point, declare a minority government is going to be held tonight by the Liberal Party of Canada. Paul Martin and his team will stay in power based on the projections that we have seen so far. The Liberals will form a minority government, final number yet to be determined as the results are still being counted. But we have seen enough already for us to declare that the Liberals will hold a minority government at the end of this evening. Keith.
Oh, I'm surprised it's happened so early. But now the question shifts, from who forms the government to how do they manage the parliament they're going to be left with. So we'll be very interested to see how the NDP number and the Liberal number move from now to see if they can get up to what would be a management number, 155 seats it takes to control the House. Well, if you have them all in one party, that's a majority. They won't have that. So they'll be looking for support when they get back to Parliament in the fall. And I think at this point you'd have to say they'd like to see that NDP number come up if theirs doesn't come up anymore, or put it together somehow that they could combine the NDP Liberal number to 155 or something.
All right. Well, you have Paul Martin winning re-election tonight, but in a minority position. The questions will, be raised whether this was the right time for an election campaign. They did win 3 straight majorities. At the same time, it wasn't more than a couple of weeks ago that they looked like they were in serious trouble, at risk of losing the election altogether.
That's right. So this is a positive, obviously a very positive story for them. When the election was called, they knew that the possibility of a minority government, of losing their majority, was very real, and they had calculated whether they could do that, whether that was a preferable option than trying to continue for another year with every policy decision they made viewed through the prism of election timing, and they decided, no, let's go for it now, and we could live with a minority government if that's what we get. Well, they're going to have to.
Okay, let's get a swing through the panel here. Mike is trying to contain himself.
Well, it's very encouraging. I mean, there's still 30 ridings to hear from, and so I think that you're right. I think the shape of the minority government will be clear at the end of the evening as to whether or not the Liberal Party has sufficient votes that it could govern with the support of any of the other parties, or whether in fact there's one party that holds
I'm sure you're thinking
dominant block. Well, no, I mean, I think that in terms of governing within a minority parliament, that obviously you want to have the flexibility to put forward legislation and put forward a program that other parties will support, and the more that you can build a consensus with the other parties, the more that you have choices, the better, the more likely that government will be stable. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how these last few ridings come in, but right now it's a very encouraging result. But nobody's crowing. I mean, the reality is elections can also be sobering experiences, and the fact that the government is going to be a minority government is going to mean that the Liberal Party is just going to have to work that much harder to keep the trust of Canadians.
All right, Tim, I'm sure this is not the result you were hoping for, but on the other hand, yours is a new party, just formed a couple of months ago, and you've brought a Liberal government that had 3 successive majorities down to a minority, and a situation that's going to be tenuous in Parliament. Could be another election in months.
Well, absolutely. First of all, let me extend my congratulations to Mike and the Liberal Party. It's been a tough campaign. I'm sure we'll enjoy going back at each other soon, but for now, congratulations. But to your point, Peter, I think who would have guessed a year ago that we would be in a position to compete with the Liberal Party? Stephen Harper, Peter MacKay, Belinda Stronach, and others put this party together, have put it in a position where until the very last night it was able to win. I think we're going to have our best showing ever, obviously. As we're a first-time party, so we will. But I think we're going to get up near 100 seats, and that's a significant achievement, and Stephen Harper deserves a lot of credit for that.
All right. Dawn, what do you make of this?
Well, the NDP vote is up incredibly in every region. It's very good, and we're getting more seats as we come across the country. We haven't hit BC yet in terms of riding results. It's looking very good for the NDP. I think Jack Layton injected a lot of energy into our party, and it's paying off in the...
He's in quite the fight, though, still in his own riding.
Yes.
Look who's being elected in York Centre. Apparently, he used to be a Goldie.
That's right, and a great goalie. And a great campaigner, too.
Yeah, Ken Dryden elected in his Toronto riding tonight. Safe Liberal seat, everybody assumed that. But Don, Jack Layton, in trouble. It's still a long way to go in the counting there. But this kind of put a damper on the evening if your leader lost.
That's early yet. There's not a lot of polls in, and it's very tight.
Right. Well, 10,000 votes counted. Donna Dasko.
Well, this is clearly the key to the victory, the Ontario was, and there really was a sense in Ontario that the vote wasn't settled until the end. That's why the leaders were spending all of their time in Ontario, because there really was a sense that voters were still making up their mind, and this is where we saw the main dynamic of the campaign, which I think was the disappointment and anger at the Liberals on the one hand, versus the unease of the Alternatives on the other hand. And people in Ontario came down on the side of unease with the alternatives and sticking with the party they knew. And I think it's clear that that's what's happened in the province. And there was so much going on in Ontario. It was really the key to the victory, and everybody knew it from day one. And it's just fascinating to see how that whole theme worked itself out, and it came down on the side of the Liberals. Let's go with these guys. We trust them a little bit more. We're disappointed in the Prime Minister. We are unhappy with the way they've conducted themselves. But the other guys, in particular the party on the right, was just a little too unknown, a little too scary.
Okay, I just want to point out that Paul Martin has made an amazing comeback against the Bloc Québécois and Sally Marr, and we have now seen enough in that one to declare that the Prime Minister won't have to seek a by-election somewhere to win a seat. Alan, as Donna points out, seemingly a lot of movement. That's Liberal Party headquarters still celebrating the news, both Martin's victory and the fact that they're going to form a minority government. A lot of movement seemed to happen at the end. What do you think happened there to make that movement? I mean, a lot of heavy negative advertising by the Liberals in the last 10 days of the campaign after the debate. Is that what swung it?
I think part of it is doubts. But Donna makes the point, in looking at some of the writing she's analyzed, is that the Progressive Conservative Alliance were able to hold about 80% of that group. Now, the other 15 to 20 leaked off, almost exclusively to the Liberal Party. But at the end of the day, and many of my Liberal friends, I mean, were very, very nervous today, Mike and others among them. And I keep on trying to say is that, but the Liberal brand, no matter what other problems you have, the Liberal brand is still very strong. If you ask who's best able to manage health care, who's best able to represent Canada in the world, who are the most competent or the best managers, who have the values that are closest to yours, even in the darkest days, those numbers held up for the Liberals. In all of Donna's polls, who's the best Prime Minister? Paul Martin is cited regardless of what all the other, in kind of indigenous, idiosyncratic things are going on. And I think those strong attributes at the end of the day serve the party, the Liberal Party, very, very well, especially in Ontario and especially in Toronto, where I cannot see anything. I think there's a clean sweep right now. In the city of Toronto.
But Alan, you talk about the positive things, but surely the negative things were part of this campaign as well. I mean, the negative ads, because there was a sense, and we saw in the polls, that the Conservatives were moving up, and there was a point in the middle of the campaign where they, in fact, were ahead. And then the negative ads and the negative messages came in, and surely that must have been a part of what we're seeing today.
Oh, I think it is.
Certainly the positive, but because there was momentum for the Conservatives, and that momentum stopped.
Okay. Got to stop you. But we will carry this on. There's going to be lots of time to talk yet this evening. I want to, first of all, zip up to Rex Murphy, who's patiently been standing by, has got lots of email comment from viewers who have been watching all this unfold. Rex, what are they saying?
Yeah, there's a spate of email comment. I can't remember. We've done a number of these elections together, and also, as you know, a number of special events, but the flood and speed of emails on this thing. This is obviously an election that has engaged the thinking process of a lot of Canadians, and the complicated result that you're seeing, the fact that it's compounded or confounded so many of these polls that had them perfectly balanced, but they probably didn't recognize the psychological complexity of weighing the thing out. Some of these things show up in these emails already. One guy writes, Sean Kelly from Calgary said, I don't think I can remember an election so focused on why we shouldn't vote for the other guy. Whatever happened to politicians standing up and telling us straight what they're for and what they're against, rather than telling us what the other guy is for or against. Another one pointing out that the scandal action in this particular thing in the early election caused a complicated result. Just a single comment. It was foolhardy pride that brought the Tories to the brink in 1993, and it is foolhardy pride that has snatched away a majority for the Liberals in 2004. There are, again, the spread of opinion on this is almost as complicated as the vote itself, but the main thing that comes out for me, at least, is that the complexity of decision that went into this really strange election has produced a result that has confounded a great multitude of polls.
All right. Thanks, Rex. We'll be back to you. You got more?
Oh, no, I got a whole bucket for later on.
Okay, thanks, Rex. We're watching this race on the right-hand side of your screen. We want to keep on top of it through the evening. It's not settled yet. Dennis Mills still has the lead over Jack Layton, as Don Black was mentioning earlier. It's early. There's still, a lot of votes have been counted, but it's very, very tight. Mills still has the advantage. He's had it, I think, since the get-go on this one. There are about 13,000 votes have been counted so far in a riding that has many more voters than that. So we'll see how things turn out as the evening progresses. Jack Layton obviously wants to be a part of this next Parliament right from the beginning in terms of having a seat in it. At this moment, he's trailing Dennis Mills. We're going from here to Don Newman in Toronto, where much of this story tonight has been unfolding. Don.
Yes, and continues to, Peter, but with a Liberal minority government, what will the quality of the opposition be, and what will the quality of that opposition be from Ontario? Let's take a look at the vote change first and how it has played out in the province. It's interesting. The Liberals have lost 8 points on the popular vote, but they're still getting most of the seats, but not like they did, of course, in 2000. But the Conservatives, even though they're picking up seats, their share of the vote has gone down from the combination of the Canadian Alliance and the Progressive Conservatives in 2000. It's the NDP that have got a tremendous boost, 10 points in their popular vote from 2000. And they are picking up some seats, but not as many as obviously the Conservatives or the Liberals. So it's an interesting way to look at it. Now, tight races, we were talking a moment ago. Martha Hall Findlay with a very narrow lead, 107 votes over Belinda Stronach. Will she make it to the House of Commons? If she would, she'd be an opposition star. But she was leading, now she's behind. Now, Brampton West, Tony Clement. He was leading for a while, but Colleen Beaumier now starting to open up a bit of a lead there. She's got a almost 700 vote lead after 65 polls I've reported out of 249. So Tony Clement looking uphill now in Brampton West. In York Simcoe, though, Peter Van Loan, he was the president of the Progressive Conservative Party until he had a falling out with Joe Clark. He has been elected. This is a riding where the Progressive Conservative vote and the Canadian Alliance vote added together would have given that riding to the Conservatives in 2000. Well, he has taken that riding, and Peter Van Loan is elected. But look at this, in Don Valley East, David Johnson was meant to be a Liberal, a Conservative star. Some people said if the Conservatives won, he might be the finance minister. He was in the Mike Harris government, senior cabinet minister. Well, no luck there. He loses to the Liberal. And look at this. Olivia Chow, her husband is trailing, and so is she, but she's further behind. She's 500, almost 550 votes behind Tony Ianno. They ran off against each other in 97. Ianno won then, and he's got the lead again this time. So, are we going to get a husband and wife team in the House of Commons? At the moment, it wouldn't look like it, would it?
No, it doesn't, Don. But as you say, they're still counting, especially in Toronto Danforth. Calgary Southwest, Stephen Harper has been re-elected, the leader of the opposition, and about to take on that role once again in a new parliament, but a very different parliament than the last time around. Of all the party leaders, you've got Harper, Duceppe, and Martin all being re-elected tonight. Jack Layton still in the struggle in Toronto Danforth with the Liberal Dennis Mills. But former NDP leaders seem to be doing well tonight. Alexa McDonough has won her riding in Halifax, and look at Ottawa Centre, where Ed Broadbent is on the comeback trail here, trying to hold a riding in Ottawa Centre. But this is not over yet. This is a close one. A lead of a couple of hundred votes, just under a couple of hundred votes for the former leader of the NDP. Wouldn't that be interesting if the NDP had two former leaders in the House and no leader in the House? Would they be scratching at the door, wondering whether they were being called back to duty? I don't know.
It's less than 1% difference in Toronto Danforth as we speak.
I don't think we should write off Ottawa Centre either. I think it'll be a fight right to the end.
Yes, right. Well, Mike's good friend Richard Mahoney is the Liberal candidate in the Ottawa Centre riding, and he's a couple hundred seats, or as we said, a couple hundred votes behind Ed Broadbent at the moment. Let's go back out west. Carol McNeil is watching the story unfold from beautiful sunny Calgary, where it's still daylight out there, and we wish it was here, but it's getting kind of dark in the nation's capital. Carol, tell us about, I guess, Manitoba you want to look at here.
Absolutely. Manitoba is really interesting because it's one of those provinces where the Liberals, Conservatives, and NDP are practically neck and neck going into this election anyway. Let's take a look at how it all stands in Manitoba. There we see it. Right now, it's not that different from going into tonight. I mean, they held 5, 5, and 4, just like you see on the screen, and that's the way it's shaping up now. But the way it is in Manitoba is the Conservatives have most of the outlying areas, and the Liberals and NDP are very competitive in the Winnipeg ridings, in the city ridings, and that's the way it's shaping up tonight. In fact, Terry Duguid of the Liberals is keeping Kildonan St. Paul as a Liberal seat, and he's heading to Ottawa as an MP. So that's Kildonan St. Paul, 1 down for the Liberals, several more to go, 4 more to go, in fact, in Manitoba. Let's take a look at St. Boniface. Actually, we don't have St. Boniface up. I assume not. I do want to take this opportunity to tell you, as a matter of fact, that Charleswood St. James, where Glenn Murray is running, the very popular 2-term mayor of Winnipeg, he's doing very well in that riding as far as we can see now. He's actually leading in that riding. Still quite early. I can't tell you exactly how early it is, but that one is definitely in progress. I'm seeing it up on the screen now. And he's got about a 100-vote lead according to our computer. It might be a little bit behind in terms of what you're getting there. Also, St. Boniface, Winnipeg South, where Reg Alcock is, who is the, of course, president of the Treasury Board and president of the Canadian, or the minister responsible for the Canadian Wheat Board. He's doing well, and also in Winnipeg South Centre, which has been Liberal since 1988. They're managing to hang on there in the early returns as well. So, Peter, that's the way it's shaping up in Manitoba. Still looking good for the Liberals in the city centre area.
All right. Thanks very much, Carol. A couple of things we wanted to update you on. This one for sure. Jack Layton has now taken the lead in Toronto Danforth. So all that praying you were doing over there, Don, worked as the polls started to report in on, especially in NDP strength areas in Toronto Danforth. This could be a long night, though, for the Danforth in terms of whether or not there will be a victor declared there in the next little while. Jack Layton in the lead, though, at the moment in Toronto Danforth. One interesting one we've been watching also in Alberta, Keith, is Anne McClellan, the Deputy Prime Minister, who was not given much of a chance on this night. The pre-game discussion, if you wish, was that she was in trouble. It always seems to be every election. Yeah, the luck had run out. But I see she's in the lead here.
Yeah, and a fairly solid lead. I'm surprised, too. I mean, they've given to calling her landslide Annie because of all of the tight election battles that she has managed to squeak out since 93, 97, 2000 were all squeakers of one variety or another. And because the right had united and you know, the Liberals were in disfavor a bit, it was seen that maybe her luck would run out this time, but so far not.
Okay. Interesting when you look at those numbers on the bottom of your screen now, and it probably explains why Mike and Don have been talking so much in the last few minutes. You got the Liberal number up to 136. You got the NDP at 21. These aren't the final numbers, obviously, but you only need 155.
That's the management
to have
issue,
control of Parliament. And here, the two numbers combined would represent 158. So we'll have to stick a mic over there and listen to what the two of them, what deals they're trying to cut over there in terms of the management of the next Parliament. But this would be the beauty position for the NDP. Obviously, they want to hold the balance of power as they did in 1972 and in so many of those parliaments that Lester Pearson ran in through the 1960s. So we'll see how that goes in terms of the evening. Now we're going to go from Ottawa to Montreal, where Wendy Mesley is at Liberal Party headquarters tonight. Wendy.
Hi, Peter. I am here with a woman who has known Paul Martin for almost 30 years. She was his secretary at CSL all that time ago. She helped his father write his memoirs. She is now in the exalted position of his campaign manager. Her name is Lucy Santoro, and you have been hopping up and down.
I'm just elated with excitement. It's just great. The news are just fantastic, and the mood behind us is just fabulous.
Is this better than you expected?
Yes. Way much better.
You saw the first couple of polls said he was in trouble.
Yes, but we knew already those polls were ahead, where we are. We know already where we're ahead and where we wouldn't be. So, and it's just, we know what to expect.
Are you a little bit disappointed by the Quebec results, 52 block seats?
Yes, I am actually, but I guess that's what life is all about. We've got to learn to accept it.
You've been counting the numbers on our screen, sort of Liberals, the NDP, put them together.
I watch it very closely because it's a man who's worked so hard to get there that I personally believe he deserves to be there, and I know that he can make things work, and he's got a vision for Canada, which I hope comes true.
Thank you. Lucy Santoro. Back to you, Peter.
All right, Wendy, thank you. We're going to swing out to Vancouver, where Ian Hannah-Mansing has got the numbers starting to really roll in British Columbia now, and I'll also explain that number at the end of our graphic here, the other one. Ian.
Well, I'll do that in just a moment, but to maintain the drama, let's leave that to the end of this hit. And let's start by saying that the overall picture in BC right now is not going to come as a surprise to anybody who's been following the campaign in British Columbia, with the Conservatives leading and elected in 15 seats in the kinds of places where you'd expect them to be leading and elected. For example, Okanagan, Coquihalla, Stockwell Day, who won this riding in a by-election when he became leader of the Canadian Alliance, held onto it by a big margin in 2000, and he is in a pretty commanding lead at this point, although of course only a handful of polls reporting. Prince George, Peace River, this is a riding where there's a 3-term MP. Jay Hill has represented the Reform Party, the Canadian Alliance, and in the lead for the Conservatives. There are close races, though, in British Columbia, and many of them we expect to be in the Vancouver area, like this one, Vancouver Kingsway. We've talked a lot about the so-called Dream Team, a candidate like David Emerson, who's been a forestry company CEO, the first head of YVR, the Airport Authority, and he's in the lead, as you can see here in Vancouver Kingsway. Ian Waddell, a former MP for both this riding and also another riding just east of Vancouver. And let's also take a look at Richmond. Richmond is fascinating. Raymond Chan used to be the MP here. He was a member of cabinet. He lost in the last election to Joe Pesky-Solito, who won for the Alliance. Pesky-Solito then crossed the floor to join the Liberals, but lost the Liberal nomination to Raymond Chan. He is, as you can see, leading. But perhaps no story in the province is more intriguing than this one. It is the reason why we have other on the board there. Chuck Cadman, former Reform and Alliance MP. A lot of buzz in that riding. He lost the nomination for the Conservatives and decided to run anyway. Then was diagnosed with cancer, and when the writ was dropped in late May, he heard about it in his hospital bed. He is leading right now. I spoke to him probably about a half an hour ago, asking him what would happen if he were elected, as many people were thinking he might be. Would he join the Conservative Party, his old colleagues with the Canadian Alliance? He says that he feels his support in the constituency has crossed party lines, and that he'll make a decision based on what his constituents say. It would be a scientific poll, and he will wait for that to happen before he decides whether he will join a party and what that party will be. Peter?
All right, Ian, thanks for clearing all that up for us. As we get the numbers in from BC, let's go back to Quebec, where the Bloc has had a big night, but the Liberals didn't do as bad as it looked like they were perhaps going to do just a few days ago. Let's find out from Susan Bonner how it all unfolded. Susan.
Yeah, hi, Peter. We are going to start by looking. I'm going to tell you about some of the big names in the province and how they're doing tonight, but we're going to start by giving you the overall provincial picture tonight. And it is the Bloc's night here. You see here the Bloc picking up 18 seats. They're at 52, leading and elected in 52 here. Not quite the 54 number they were headed for and hoping for, but still, you can't say that's a bad performance. And the Liberals down 17. Let's tell you about some of the big names I was referring to now. And first of all, a loss. Heritage Minister Hélène Scherrer will not be going back to the House of Commons. She's been defeated by a political novice, Roger Clavé. That's in the Quebec City riding of Louis Hébert. However, some other Liberal cabinet ministers will be going back. One of them, Justice Minister Irwin Cotler, former Justice Minister. I mean, will Paul Martin put him back in the cabinet? Well, he'll certainly have him to choose from. Fortress Montreal delivers once again for Liberals. And in the riding of Saint-Laurent-Cartierville, Stéphane Dion, he was not in Paul Martin's cabinet. Paul Martin dropped him. He was in Jean Chrétien's cabinet. You remember, he's the father of the Clarity Act. Some people say that Paul Martin may be calling on Mr. Dion to go into his next cabinet. He helped boost the Liberal campaign fortunes in this campaign when the Liberals were in trouble here in Quebec. Just in the last week or so, Stéphane Dion has been campaigning hard in Quebec, and he was also campaigning across the rest of the country, so keep your eye on him as Paul Martin forms a cabinet. Peter.
All right, Susan, thank you. The numbers at the bottom of your screen tell the story of the night. The Liberals heading to a minority government situation tonight, and from the looks of it at this hour, a relatively strong minority. 140 seats were showing them leading or elected in. The Conservatives at 83, the Bloc at 53, the NDP at 24, and as Ian mentioned, Chuck Cadman, the independent in BC, leading in his riding at this point. Present company accepted, because they didn't get involved. But this has not been a good night for pollsters and surveyors and those coming up with seat projections. You've seen them splashed all over the papers in the last few days and on other networks. But I'll tell you, every number that they put out didn't look anything like the numbers we're looking at on this evening. As a fairly significant gap between the Liberal top number and the Conservative number at this point was still 6 seats yet to be reported. Well, let's see how our good friend Terry Mosher in Montreal at the Montreal Gazette is making out. He's the cartoonist known better perhaps around the country and in many parts of the world as Aislinn. Terry has been working on his cartoon for tomorrow, the editorial cartoon in the Montreal Gazette. He also works for Maclean's. So you told us a few hours ago what the fail-safe cartoon was going to be when you didn't know the result. What are you doing now, Terry?
We might go back to Peter, I'll let you call this, actually. What do you want to see in the Gazette tomorrow? It's not going to be this one, I'll tell you. The Liberals holding a garage sale on Parliament Hill.
I guess we put that one away.
And the winner is Paul Martin. But a very tired-looking Paul Martin, I think, right?
Yeah, boy, I'll say.
So it could be that one. But
Yeah?
I still kind of like the original one, the good now wash your hands. So I think that probably sums up a lot of the attitudes about the actual.
Yeah.
But I'll let you pick.
Yeah.
Which one do you think?
Oh, boy, I finally
that
get a
it?
chance. I finally get a chance to make a decision on a newspaper. I love it.
There you go.
I like that first one.
What's it going to be, Peter?
I like the earlier one, too, the one that you tossed away.
Yeah, I do.
You know, then you could end up with all those other papers like the Tampa Tribune or whatever it was that did the editorial about how sad they were that Tampa had lost the Stanley Cup final. They're all good. They're all good, Terry. You better do the picking.
I got another one here.
Oh, okay.
The most surprised man in Canada is Paul Martin. And here he is on a Canadian steamship line saying, oh, to hell with all of it. Get me to Bermuda. But somebody from the shore is yelling, come back, Paul, you won.
Boy, you were really ready for a Liberal loss tonight, weren't you?
Well, there you go.
Yeah, okay. Aislinn joining us from Montreal. Terry Mosher at the Montreal Gazette. We appreciate his time and his good spirits in helping us out. Let's check in on the Ontario numbers once again. Lots of races to watch, including that one at Toronto Danforth. But let's hear what Don's take is on the Ontario results so far. Don.
Well, Peter, there are some vacancies now in the cabinet. Let's look at what has happened in the province. Some cabinet ministers have lost their seats. So let's take a look first at the what has happened here in Hamilton Centre. Stan Keyes has lost his seat to Dave Christopherson. He was in the cabinet. He went in on December the 12th. He is not going back to Ottawa after the vote count here. This is probably the Sheila Copps factor, as it is in the next riding. Hamilton East Stony Creek, where Tony DiPaolo has now defeated Tony Valeri, the transport minister, also into the cabinet December the 12th, out on June the 28th. Let's take a look, though, who is going to go then from Hamilton into the cabinet. Well, could it be Beth Finney? She was first elected in 1988. She is still leading in Hamilton Mountain. It is tight, but she has a 242 vote lead. So there could be more on the table for Beth Finney tonight, and just holding on to that seat. In Nepean Carleton, in the Ottawa area, David Pratt, the defense minister, another new cabinet minister, now a former cabinet minister, or very shortly he will be. He's lost to Pierre Poilievre, who is a former aide to Stockwell Day. So who might go into the cabinet from the Ottawa area? Well, here's a name people in Ottawa know. It is the name of, well, there's music in the air, and we are projecting a minority government, but who are we going to have then in the cabinet from Ottawa? Let's take a look at the next riding and see what has happened there. There's a name people have heard before, but it is David McGuinty, not Dalton McGuinty, the Premier's brother. He has held on to the riding of Ottawa South, John Manley's riding. They're used to a cabinet minister in Ottawa South, so with David Pratt gone, could it be David McGuinty who is going into the cabinet? Or, look at this riding. It is tight, 392 vote lead for Ed Broadbent, but if he were to fall behind to Richard Mahoney, a close friend of Paul Martin, if he could pull this off, he might go into the cabinet from Ottawa Centre. The other thing that's interesting about Ottawa Centre, Ed Broadbent has said that if he wins and Jack Layton loses in Toronto Danforth, then Ed Broadbent would be prepared to step aside, create the by-election, and let Jack Layton run in that riding. So a lot at stake in Ottawa Centre, as in Toronto Danforth, as for a number of people who may be cabinet ministers because of the results tonight. Peter.
All right, Don, fascinating. Just quickly, on the McGuinty win in Ottawa, the McGuinty brother. By the way, there's Olivia Chow losing in Trinity Spadina tonight. That's the wife of Jack Layton. The Liberals hold that seat. Just quickly on McGuinty. How surprised are you on that? You were watching that one pretty close, and there was obviously an impact from his brother's budget, not only in other parts of Ontario, but one assumes in that riding. But he wins tonight.
Very much so. Right after the budget, a lot of people thought that Alan Riddell, the Conservative, would win. But in the last couple of weeks in the campaign, as the Liberals started to pull back, McGuinty was doing better. And then Alan Riddell, it was reported in the Ottawa Citizen, had been driving without a valid driver's license. And that seemed to hurt his campaign. Obviously helped David McGuinty there. But it is, McGuinty had worked for the mayor, Bob Chiarelli, so he had part of the mayor's organization behind him. And he also had the Manly organization behind him. And it is a Liberal riding. It was Conservative 84 to 88, but other than that, it's been a Liberal riding. So he had a lot going for him, even though the budget, you're right, when it first came down, a lot of people wondered if there'd only be one McGuinty from Ottawa South, and that'd be the Premier and not his brother.
All right, Don, thanks very much. We'll be back to Don a little later on in the evening. We should update the situation in Toronto. Danforth, the latest numbers coming out of there for Jack Layton show him opening up the lead a little bit. Almost 400 votes, the lead for Layton over Dennis Mills. This is with a little over half of the polls reporting so far. No one's in a hurry to declare this one because it has bounced back and forth during the evening, but Layton now starting to open up a little bit of a lead, so we'll watch that one closely. Let's go back out west. Carol McNeil is in Calgary with the latest on the Prairie results. Carol.
Thanks, Peter. I want to show everyone how it's shaping up in terms of the vote change, the percentage of the vote and so on in two of the provinces that I'm covering tonight. The first one is in Saskatchewan, and we'll take a look at the share of the vote. And you can see the Conservatives have 41.5% of the vote, and then it's divvied up pretty much equally between Liberals and NDP, and then others hold 6.8%. Now, in terms of dealing out that kind of percentage and where it lands and where it translates into votes, let's take a look at the riding of Wascana. The riding of Wascana is held by Ralph Goodale, and of course he's been elected tonight, but this is why the Liberals really do well here. The share of the vote translates in the urban centre very high for the Liberals. So that's why you're seeing Ralph Goodale win, and have seen Ralph Goodale win for the last few terms of the last few elections. However, if you look in the rural area of Saskatchewan, the vote translates somewhat differently. And in Saskatoon, Wenasquewan, we're seeing Maurice Vellacott declared elected. He defeated Liberal Chris Axworthy, who was one of the Paul Martin's picks, if you will, for taking back this riding. Axworthy used to be with the NDP, and he's held riding previously. He beat out Ray Natition in 88, and then again he won at 93. He went on to provincial NDP politics, decided to run as a Liberal this time. It didn't work for him. It didn't work for the Liberal Party, and part of the reason of that is that the actual vote, the rural vote, goes to the Conservatives. In Manitoba, you're seeing much the same breakdown. As we said before, there's more of a share, an equal share for all of the parties. But if you look at how it breaks down between rural and urban, then it's very clear. And especially if you take a look at, for example, Winnipeg South, where Reg Alcock has been declared elected. We'll take a look at that in a second. He has been declared elected, and he will be returning to Ottawa as a Liberal, and that's because in the urban centres the Liberals are very popular. Compare that with Dauphin Swan River, for example. Dauphin Swan River is an agricultural community, a very rural community, and it shows because Inky Mark has been re-elected, and he is going back to Ottawa as an MP for Dauphin Swan River. So it's very distinctive between rural ridings and what you can expect from urban ridings in the West, in those two provinces. Not so much in Alberta, it's pretty much all blue.
Yeah. Pretty much all blue except Edmonton Centre, as we see,
That's right.
for one, where Anne McClellan, as you've been warning us, in tight race all along, she is now in the lead, and she's got a lead of a couple of hundred votes, but it's not over yet. Let's go to Edmonton. Anne McClellan has just come into her headquarters. Let's listen to what she has to say.
Happened, particularly sponsorship, and they want us to do better, but they want us to be the ones who do better, not Stephen Harper and his vision of this country.
What about his vision? What about those social issues?
Pardon me?
Is it a repudiation of the Liberal Party?
No, not at all. I just think we are doing well tonight. Obviously, everybody would have liked a majority government, but as I say, I think if we're all honest, voters probably wanted to send a message. They generally like the direction of the country. They generally like the way the Liberal Party has the direction we've taken the country over the past 10 years. They like Paul Martin as our leader, but they wanted to send a message that we have to work harder, and we have
Klein in healthcare. And what about Ralph Klein in healthcare? How big a factor?
All right, Anne McClellan, the Deputy Prime Minister, affectionately known as Landslide Annie, for just squeaking by in past elections. She's in another tight race tonight, but at this hour has a lead of a couple of hundred votes. The other Alberta race to be watching is Edmonton-Beaumont, where the Liberal David Kilgour used to be a Tory at one time. He's a Liberal now. He is the incumbent, and he has the lead, but once again, a very tight lead for the other Liberal incumbent in Alberta. The other 26 seats in the province remain Tory blue. Let's look at how Liberals are putting this one together. When you look at a Liberal map of Canada, where are their seats? Well, they are represented in every province and every territory in the country tonight. These are leading or elected, most of them elected at this point. But if it stays this way, you'd have 5 Liberals in Newfoundland, Labrador. You have all 4 in PEI, as has been the case for the last 10 years since '93, 6 in Nova Scotia, 7 in New Brunswick, 21 in Quebec, 77 in Ontario, another Liberal government based on the powerhouse results they can get out of the province of Ontario, even though they've lost almost a couple of dozen seats there. 4 in Manitoba, 1, that's Ralph Goodale, with a huge victory in Saskatchewan tonight, more than 10,000, the last lead we saw. They're leading in 2 seats in Alberta, 5 in BC, and then 1 each in the territories, Nunavut, the Northwest Territories, and in Yukon. So the Liberals, Keith, can proudly exclaim that they are forming the government. It may be a minority one, which is not what they're used to, but nevertheless, they are represented in every part of the country, assuming those Alberta seats hold.
Yeah, this has been a good night for them, given what they were going into. You know, I'm thinking back to the comment we made earlier about the polls. I actually think a lot changed on in the last 4 or 5 days of this campaign. It was a very, very fast and furious thing, and we saw people make dramatic decisions in terms of their campaign strategy at the end of it, over the weekend and so on. And I think this result shows that a lot of hard work was done, but you know, the Liberals have a couple of things here they never thought they would have. I think the most important one is they have a very clear way to manage themselves through an agenda, because they are not going to get into that trap that people were looking at through the last 2 or 3 weeks of the campaign, with the Bloc Québécois having the balance of power in Ottawa. And you know, there were a lot of nervous people about what that might mean to the country, and whether it could put national unity on the table again, and would it even shape the next election. There have got to be a lot of Liberals breathing a big sigh of relief, partly because they've formed a minority government, but also because they have this way of managing that parliament.
All right, let's update you on a riding we've been watching closely throughout the evening, Ottawa Centre. We've seen enough now. We are going to declare Ed Broadbent elected in Ottawa Centre based on the returns we've seen so far and where they've been coming from through the Ottawa Centre riding. Ed Broadbent returns to Parliament Hill, first time since the late 80s, early 90s. And so Ed Broadbent will be seen once again in the corridors of this building. Gilles Duceppe, big night for him in Quebec as he wins a good chunk of the vote. That's the national numbers here right now that show the Bloc on a national figure of 12%, all of it based in their support, obviously, in the province of Quebec. He holds his own seat, and he holds, what is it, 52, a total of 54 ridings in Quebec. Almost all of them settled. There are 3 still up for grabs there. But 54 is what Lucien Bouchard achieved for the Bloc Québécois in 1993. So a big night for Gilles Duceppe. But how big is it really? He wanted to hold the balance of power, but it appears that while he could potentially hold the balance of power, the more likely fit, obviously, is the Liberals with the NDP. And we'll get more of that from Don Black and Mike Robinson, who've been chatting away for the past hour, structuring the deal already right here at our table. But for Gilles Duceppe, he's the first of the leaders out to make a speech this evening. You know, we'll hear what he has to say when he gets up to the podium. Obviously a big night for him. This was the leader who, when he first ran his first campaign, had that picture taken of him wearing a cheese hat, and it kind of destroyed the image for him. It was kind of like a Michael Dukakis moment there when the former Democratic contender had that shot with a helmet on. that almost single-handedly destroyed his campaign. But this time, Duceppe is the giant in Quebec. Look at this number now up to 56 leading or elected in the province of Quebec, which brings the Liberal number down as a result. But Gilles Duceppe with his family and about to make his remarks to his supporters in Montreal.
Bonsoir. Merci. Merci.
Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you.
Merci. C'est une belle victoire.
Thank you. This is a wonderful victory.
On peut dire que c'est une victoire propre au Québec,
we could
n'est-ce
say
pas?
that this is Quebec's own victory.
Je veux tout d'abord remercier
First of all,
ma famille
I want to
qui
thank
m'a
my
donné ce
family
courage au cours de ces années.
that gave me the courage to keep going over these years.
Yolande en premier lieu.
First of all, Yolande.
Était là et qui est une femme
She's always been there
excessivement
for
courageuse.
me. She's a tremendously
Je peux pas
courageous
passer à
woman.
travers tous ces combats si elle n'avait pas été là.
And I don't know that I would have gotten through all these struggles without her support.
Et Amélie, Alexis,
And
Mylène,
Amélie,
Claude,
Alexis,
le petit Émile qui fait dodo malheureusement.
little
On
Emile,
va-
who's asleep, unfortunately, at this point,
Et mes frères, mes sœurs, ma
and
mère,
my
la famille de
sisters
Yolande.
and
Vous savez, c'est
brothers
précieux
and
avoir
all
cet
my
appui
family
parce
members.
que la politique est
It's
un
very
combat
precious
difficile.
to have those
Je vous remercie
family
également
supporters because the politics is a difficult struggle.
Tous ces hommes,
I also
toutes ces femmes
want to
dans Laurier
thank all
Sainte-Marie.
those
C'est mon
men
cinquième mandat.
and women
C'est
who
pas-
helped me to carry forward this fifth mandate.
C'est pas le comté le plus riche monétairement.
It is
mais
not
c'est
the
plein de
richest
richesses humaines dans ce
riding
comté, de solidarité.
monetarily, but it certainly is in terms of the solidarity we've seen here.
Et avant d'être chef,
And
on est député.
Before you become a
Souvent,
leader,
des
you're a
petits
member of
problèmes
parliament.
aux yeux de certains,
And
mais des gros
often
problèmes
minor
à
problems
ceux et celles à qui ça arrive.
become
Et
big
ça, faut jamais
problems.
l'oublier. J'ai toujours
And
rappelé
that's
mes
something
députés.
one must
Il
never
faut toujours se
forget.
souvenir de ça, nos ancrages
We
sont là.
have to remember
Je
that.
veux remercier
I
tout
also
mon personnel,
want to
les
thank
adjoints
all
à
my
Montréal,
staff
le
and my
parti. C'est un
assistants,
travail,
the
c'est un travail
party.
d'équipe
This
extraordinaire.
is
On me dit que
obviously
je parle fort.
teamwork, and it
On va
was
parler plus fort.
extraordinary teamwork that allowed us to achieve this victory.
Les militants, les militantes sur le terrain toute la
Activists
journée.
in the field, supporters of
Et
the party,
parmi ces militants,
and among
je veux
these
remercier quelqu'un
activists,
qui a toujours
I want to
été
thank
aux
someone
côtés du Bloc
who
québécois,
has always
même
been
dans les
behind
temps
the bloc,
difficiles.
even
Un appui
in hard times.
indéfectible. Je veux remercier mon ami
I want to
Bernard
thank
Landry.
my friend Bernard Landry.
On a fait cette élection main dans la main.
We
On a mené plusieurs
carried off
combats
this
et
election
qu'on mènera
hand in
tous ces
hand,
combats
and
jusqu'au pays qu'on
we
doit se donner.
will carry through with this struggle.
Je veux remercier également
I also want to thank
un autre militant souverainiste de
another
longue date qui travaille
sovereigntist
avec le Bloc depuis
activist
longtemps
who's been working with the
sur des
bloc for
chantiers
a
comme la
long time
mondialisation,
on such
qui nous a
areas as
conseillé
globalization and
au niveau des finances
who
publiques,
has helped
la
us with
péréquation.
public finances,
de Jacques Parizeau, bien
equalization.
sûr.
And of course, I'm talking about Jacques Parizeau.
Je veux féliciter
I also want to
tous les
congratulate
candidats et candidates, des
all
gens de
the
conviction qui ont mené
candidates
cette
in this
lutte avec
election,
nous.
all the
Ceux et
people
celles qui
who
ont
fought this
perdu
battle
aussi, parce
with
qu'on a
us,
mené des combats,
as well as
dans des
those who
endroits où on
lost,
n'avait pas
because
l'habitude d'amener
we
des combats.
led this struggle
On a
in
tous relevé
areas
le défi de la
where
démocratie.
we had not been in power before.
Je veux également
I also
féliciter
want to
tous les candidats et
congratulate
candidates des autres
all
partis
the
au Québec
candidates
et à travers le
of the other
Canada.
parties in Quebec and across
Parce que c'est
Canada,
ça la démocratie.
because that's what democracy is
C'est un
about.
jeu, pas un jeu, c'est un
It's a
défi
game? No, not a
passionnant,
game.
cruel quelquefois.
It's a
Il y en a qui
challenge.
gagnent, il y en a qui perdent.
Some people win, some people lose.
Mais autant ça nous anime, autant il y a des obstacles que l'on
There
rencontre
are
et que l'on
obstacles we
surmonte.
face,
Je veux
obstacles that we
féliciter
overcome,
les chefs des autres
and I
partis,
want to
M.
therefore
Martin,
congratulate
M.
the leaders
Layton,
of the
M.
other
Harper.
parties, Mr. Harper, Mr. Layton, and Mr. Martin.
Gilles Duceppe, the leader of the Bloc Québécois, on a big night for him. The Bloc leading are elected in 56 seats, only a couple of those yet to be decided. Let's have a look at what's happening in Quebec tonight. Susan Bonner has been watching it all from Montreal. Susan.
56 seats, that bests Lucien Bouchard's record of 54 seats in 1993. And remember, put that in context, in 1993, after the failure of Charlottetown, the separatist movement and the sovereignty movement, the Bloc was very strong. Tonight, they have beat that, leading and elected in 56 seats. And let's show you some of the areas where they've made inroads
Right.
now. Across the party, the Bloc Québécois has picked up 22 seats. And they're up in the vote share as well. And that is the story of success for the Bloc Québécois tonight in some of the ridings where they have won. A surprising win here in Saint-Lambert. It's one of the ridings in the belt around Montreal on the South Shore. Meiko Koto has taken this for the Bloc Québécois. A very popular candidate in this election. But what's interesting about this riding, Peter, is that there's a large percentage of English-speaking and non-English or French-speaking, what they call allophones here in Quebec in the riding. And this is an interesting place for the Bloc to win. There'll be a lot written and analysis offered up on this riding. In the riding of Saint-Maurice, formerly held by former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien, now in the hands of the Bloc Québécois, Marcel Gagnon. The Bloc picking up the seat of a former Prime Minister. Of course, it has been redistributed, so it's not exactly the same seat. Nevertheless, that's one of the areas where they've made inroads. And in the riding of Beauport in Quebec City, the Bloc taking all the ridings in Quebec City tonight. And Christian Simard beating a star Liberal candidate, Denis Dawson, who was a member of Parliament several years ago, a key advisor to Paul Martin, hoping to win. He did not tonight. Those are some of the areas, Peter, where the Bloc Québécois has made inroads, taking seats away from the Liberals.
All right, Susan, thank you very much. Susan Bonner in Montreal with the Quebec story. We're in the chopper high above Parliament Hill. On a big night in the nation as the country goes to the polls and elects a Liberal minority government. The NDP, for one, holding the balance of power. It's 12 minutes after 11. This was supposed to be a long night. As it turned out, it wasn't that long at all before we had a shape of what exactly was going to happen. Well, let's stay in the helicopter in another manner of speaking by looking at the overall numbers for the country because they tell an interesting story. Here it is, first of all, in terms of the change in seats in the country. The Liberals had 176 at the end of the last Parliament. They've lost 41 seats on this evening. They're down to 135. The Conservatives up only 8 seats at this point in the evening to 91. But nevertheless, they are firmly in control of the opposition and they have held the Liberals to a minority position. The Bloc, the big winners on the evening, picking up 22 new seats in the province of Quebec. They're at 56. And the NDP picking up 10 seats. They're at 24. Their leader still in a race in Toronto Danforth. But you did see there a few minutes ago that Ed Broadbent has been declared elected in the Ottawa Centre riding, so they at least have 2 former leaders in their caucus already, Ed Broadbent and Alexa McDonough. Now, vote change. This is interesting. I'll tell you why. Look at this. Here's the overall numbers for the evening of all the votes counted so far tonight. The Liberals roughly at 38% of the accumulated vote. That's down about 3 points. The Conservatives 29 and change. The NDP at 15.4%, so they didn't get up into the 20s as some were suggesting, and the Bloc at 12%. Now, the reason I say that's interesting, and here we get Alan and Donna's thoughts on this, those numbers, you look at those top numbers, well, all three of them, the top three numbers, 38, 29, 15. Doesn't that sound like the last poll you saw before the election started?
Exactly.
Nothing changed at the end of it all.
Well, in point of fact, I think a lot changed. A tremendous amount. You know, we talk about 1988 being such an unusual election because it had the double dip where you saw things move two ways. It's very, very rare that you stop momentum in a campaign. And the Liberals have to be given some credit in this regard in terms of the campaign they won. There's no question that the Conservatives were able to close the gap to virtually nothing. And in fact, we're a little bit ahead just right before the debates. I think the debates unsettled things. They opened things up. Doubts were raised. I think a lot of people started to, you know, really look at their vote in a serious way because of the concerns and uncertainties they had about all the options. And then there was change in the last couple of days. I don't think there's any question. I was talking to a prominent Liberal today who said their tracking, which went right up to last night, showed that in Atlantic Canada, in Ontario, and in BC, that there was continued movement over the last 48 hours. So lots of change.
Donna?
I think your point about 88 is a good one because, in fact, nobody thought it was going to be an 1988 scenario. There were other scenarios for it. There were, you know, scenarios that the Liberals would continue to drop and the Tories would come up, and lots of different
See, Jack Layton, just let me interrupt you for a sec, Donna. Jack Layton re-elected elected now. First time he gets into the House of Commons, so he will be leading his caucus at least 23 strong as they head to Ottawa. Sorry.
But what I'm very surprised at is that none of the pollsters picked this up in the last week. I mean, you may be right, Alan, maybe it all happened in the last couple of days, but that would be an astonishing outcome of this campaign, to see such change so late. You know, you would have thought that we would have picked, you know, pollsters in general would have picked this up earlier, but all the polls last week had the parties just virtually dead equal. You know, we did a poll and finished it last Tuesday, 33-33, and ECOS and the other Ipsos Reid polls, 32-31. And to see this is just absolutely astonishing as an outcome, to see the Liberals coming back so strongly in the last couple of days, if in fact that's what's happened. I've never seen anything like this before.
I take it back to the wondering about, and I want to hear the pundits' thoughts on all this too, but the negative advertising, the heavy buy by the Liberals in the last 3 or 4 days of the campaign, where they really went after Stephen Harper in that advertising campaign. That must have been part of the impact of these last few days, if there was that kind of a shift happening just in the last hour.
See, that's where you left off. It does. The first negative advertising, for good or ill, works. It works in no small measure because it communicates very effectively. I mean, you would be stunned at how often you test a commercial and say, what did that say? And people look at it and they say, I don't know. Negative advertising, they almost always know. So, but having said that, if that's all there was, then you would have seen the Liberals losing more seats to the New Democrats in areas like Trinity and the Beaches in Toronto. They didn't. There was more than simply negatives at work here. There was a resilience to the Liberal Party, to people's sense of comfort with them, even with all the doubts, even with all the anger that was there, that I think caused a lot of people in the last few days as they get into the ballot box. And I've told you this before, we've done post-election studies where as many as 8% of electors admit that they will make up their mind in the box in that last, you know, moment before. So I think there was shifting in the last little while, and I think there was some effectiveness in the last week of the campaign combined. Sorry,
no, I agree, Alan. I think there were other factors as well, but I think the negative side of it had to be a really important factor, and it wasn't just the negative ads; it was the messages coming from Paul Martin. I mean, it was. And from Liberal candidates, don't vote for these other people. You know, they are scary. They are, they're going to cause trouble for the country. And it was coming. The messages were coming consistently from all sources within the Liberal Party, and you know, it had to be an important factor in people's consideration when they're going into that ballot box.
All right, I want to get the thoughts of Tim, Don, and Mike on this same subject as well. But first of all, I want to take a break from us and go outside to Rick Mercer, who has some important thoughts on all this right now. Here's Rick.
The results of this election are going to be very interesting. They have to be, because during the campaign, every single time you turned around, someone was saying something like, I like this party, but I'm not voting for this party. I'm voting for another party I don't like to stop another party I can't stand. And the party I like, I want to win. Just not a majority, just a minority, because I like them, just not that much. If aliens came down from above, they would take one look and realize we were a nation of mad people. But we're not mad, we're just Canadian. And as Canadians, we like to take our vote and use it to punish and not reward, which is why we have all this talk of minority governments. Now, some people, they're very excited about the notion of a minority government. At first, I wasn't sure, but now I'm sold. Just not for the same reasons that everyone else has. For starters, I don't remember a minority government in my lifetime, so I would like a minority government. For the same reason, I would like to see, I don't know, a rhinoceros. I just haven't seen one before, so I think it would be neat. Also, I've looked into it, and a minority government will force the leaders of the various parties to work closely with one another on a daily basis. And I love this, because these men hate one another. It's not an act. Having to spend time with one another will be incredibly unpleasant for these men. So I say, let's go one step further. Let's make sure that any party that makes any deals with any other party so they can form a government also has to share 24 Sussex Drive. In fact, why not make them all share 24 Sussex Drive? We can slap up a few bunk beds and Harper, Martin, Duceppe, Leighton, they can stay up late at night, eating s'mores, giggling, solving the world's problems. It's bound to work better than the system we have today. I want a system where when Paul Martin comes down over the stairs in the morning, the first thing he sees is Jack Leighton in a Speedo coming out of the swimming pool, and Olivia Chow's in the kitchen whipping up some smoothies. If we end up with a minority, pundits will debate for months whether this is good or bad for Canada. But if we do end up with a minority, one thing we do know, it will be a living hell for the leaders. And for that, we can be grateful.
Does this guy ever stand still for 2 seconds? Well, we'll think that one through, because, Rick, you got your minority. And we're going to hear from the panel in a second, but first back out to Vancouver, where Ian Hanomansing can update us on the situation in British Columbia. Ian.
Well, Peter, the last time we spoke, I said that the party standings showed no surprise. The Conservatives well out in front, although standings are looking surprising now. The Conservatives leading or elected in 19 seats. That won't come as a big surprise, although they did much better last time around. But it's the next two numbers, 8 seats for the Liberals, 8 seats for the NDP, of course, leading and elected. For the NDP, that's a big jump from the 2 seats they had last time, and it's because of stories like Skeena Bulkley Valley, the big riding in the northwest of the province. So much talk here about Andy Burton, the Alliance MP running for the Conservatives, about Myle Richardsons, the former Aboriginal leader who was running for the Liberals. But not only did the NDP win, but it won by a whopping margin. In Victoria, David Anderson, Liberal cabinet minister, is in the lead right now, but with the slimmest of margins, NDP second. And as you can see, the Green Party in 4th place here with 11.5% of the vote. So much talk about uniting the right across the country. If the left were united in this riding, it would push the NDP to 1st place. And Abbotsford, one of the ridings where the former Alliance, now Conservative MP, doing very well, elected a long time ago with a big share of the vote. I'll let the panel decide what impact Randy White's comments may have had on the national campaign, but he certainly returned to the House of Commons from Abbotsford by a big share. And here's a riding a lot of people were looking at closely, Vancouver Quadra, the riding of John Turner back in the 80s. Stephen Owen, another Liberal cabinet minister representing this riding, re-elected. Some people predicting this would have been a lot closer. Stephen Rogers, a longtime cabinet minister for the Social Credit Party in the provincial government, but in the end, not close at all. And Peter, one last thing, we talked about Chuck Cadman, the former Alliance MP who lost the Conservative nomination. He has been re-elected, 42% of the vote in his riding of Surrey North. Another chapter in his amazing political story. Peter?
All right, Ian, thanks very much, and we'll be back out checking in with Ian again, as some races still obviously to be settled in British Columbia. In Saskatchewan tonight, there's Ralph Goodale, the Minister of Finance, a big win in his riding of Wascana. He's heading to the microphone shortly to make his thank you remarks. But as we flip from Saskatchewan to the familiar face of Ed Broadbent thanking his supporters in the riding of Ottawa Centre, let's listen in for a minute or two here.
And
I also want to say, because I have reason to believe both CTV and CBC may be following this, notwithstanding what Mike Duffy said earlier today, notwithstanding what a man named Don Newman said in the past hour, I never, under any circumstances, said that I was running in this seat and then would betray the people of the city and give it up to someone else. I would never have said that. On a very positive note, as I have just said, I want to work hard for this community and make my contribution to the national debates beyond the reaches of this community as well, of course, with my colleagues who are being elected from all regions of this country. But I want to say very specifically that the issues that were of concern in this city, and I found it on the doorsteps, I found it in every part of this riding, they were affordable housing, they were health care. They were the need to rebuild the infrastructure of our cities. And yes, here in the nation's capital and across the country, we have too many poor children, and I'm going to fight on that. The voters of this community, along with those across the country, and I've seen the most recent figures that I've seen, we have to wait until those wonderful people in BC, till they finally cast their ballots. But it looks like at the very minimum...
All right, Ed Broadbent feeling pretty good in Ottawa Centre as he's elected tonight. Here's Ralph Goodale, the Minister of Finance, talking to his supporters in Saskatchewan.
A couple of races are still very close. But I want to say to all of them and to their workers, congratulations and thank you for your magnificent effort. Nationally, the Liberal vote tonight has proven not over yet. There's still some results to be counted on the West Coast.
Hey, they're playing our music. Merci, Joanne.
All right, well, we're leaving Ralph Goodale as he talks to his supporters as we swing into the Metro Toronto Convention Centre, which is headquarters tonight for the NDP. A night, I'm sure, of mixed feelings for Jack Layton. His wife, Olivia Chow, lost her riding, her attempt to win a seat from the Liberals in downtown Toronto. But Layton himself has won in a very close race with Dennis Mills, separated by about 1,000 votes there, you see, in the latest count. But his party almost doubling its seats tonight as they end up with 23 at this point. There's still some counting going on. But more importantly, they'll likely hold the balance of power here, coupled with the Liberals in terms of how this Parliament will unfold. It's much more likely, obviously, that the Liberals will try to make an arrangement with the NDP than they would with the Bloc. So Layton is, in that sense, in the driver's seat. Keith, the numbers for the NDP, not stunning in the overall figures in terms of a percentage of the vote at the end of the evening, but seat-wise, power-wise, where they're positioned after being basically left out in the cold before Layton arrived, they're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to say this man is gold tonight. They accomplished their two principal objectives, which were, to increase their seat number and to make themselves relevant again, which they will be able to do much, much more easily now that they have some purchase on power in a minority government. And you're right. You look back to the last election, coming out of that, they were so disappointed. They were so many people who were disaffected NDPers out there that there was serious talk of this party that would not survive until this election. And yet here they are coming back and being in a better position than they have been post-election since probably 1972.
Well, a pretty happy crowd there in Toronto tonight, and we're going to listen to Jack Layton's speech. The second of the party leaders to speak on this evening, Gilles Duceppe, we heard from a short time ago. Here's Jack Lee.
My friends, is this a party on the move or what? Parliament is about to get a big dose of new energy, my friends. Right across this country tonight, more than twice as many people voted for New Democrats from coast to coast to coast. And we've elected twice as many MPs as well. More than 1 million more people said they wanted the kind of country that we want. A greener country, a fairer country, a more caring society. And we've got twice as many MPs to help make that happen. And there is no question about it. Across this country tonight and over the past 18 months, there has been a new energy in our party. It's a new energy that we saw at the ballot box, and it's a new energy we're going to see in the House of Commons too. I am touched that you have given me the opportunity to be the conductor for your energy, and deeply moved that you've let me fight for our ideals. And I am so thrilled to have had the opportunity to fight with so many of you for the country that we want and the world that we believe is possible. Let me congratulate Paul Martin, Stephen Harper, and Gilles Duceppe on their results tonight. I hope that we are able to work together for the benefit of all Canadians in the next Parliament. Je voudrais tout d'abord offrir mes plus sincères félicitations.
I would like to extend my sincere congratulations to Mr. Duceppe, Mr. Martin, and Mr. Harper for their results this evening and for their campaign. I said that this election would be about ideas, and we have to take a serious look at the ideas brought forward by each of the parties in the coming months.
Offer my deepest thanks to the people of Toronto Danforth. It is truly an honor to be your next member of Parliament, and I thank you. I want also to congratulate my opponents in Toronto Danforth on their well-fought campaigns. I would like in particular to acknowledge Dennis Mills for his many years of service to Toronto and to Canada. And also to Jim Harris, the leader of the Green Party, another party who deserved a larger role in Parliament tonight. I would also like to send a huge thank you to New Democrats from coast to coast to coast who've worked so hard to bring new energy to our party. I've been moved by your energy, inspired by your ideas. Together you are my North Star, a constant reminder of why politics should matter. And let me say, to every young person, every new activist, everyone who said this was an election to give the NDP our vote and our hope, we have only just begun our journey together, and I thank you sincerely. Of course, my deepest thanks and all of my love also go tonight to my family, to my kids, Sarah and Mike, who are here with me, to my mom, Doris, Olivia's mom, Josie, and of course, to Olivia. It looks as though and of course, I want to thank the millions of Canadians who gave us their support tonight. We will not let you down. Over the last week, Paul Martin made many commitments to Canadians. He said he would protect public health care, that he would oppose weapons in space, that he would implement Kyoto, and that he would fund our cities and communities, and that he would start a national child care program. My commitment to Canadians tonight is that we will hold him to it with every ounce of energy we have. Because, my friends, we will work for a greener, fairer, and more caring society. And we will just see how interesting Paul Martin finds the idea of proportional representation. Tonight is for celebrating, friends. Across this country, we more than doubled our vote. And our commitment to those people who put their faith in us is that we will be true to the values you hold, and to the hopes that you have, and to the country that we still want to build together. Ce soir est pour célébrer.
Tonight, we must celebrate the fact that we have doubled our support across the country. And I want to thank those who put their trust in us. I can tell them that we will protect their values, their aspirations, and the society we want to build together.
I would like to congratulate all of the candidates for our party right across this country. To congratulate those who were successful tonight, and of course to commiserate with those who will wait until next time. Tonight, we New Democrats are stronger than we have been for many years. We are the only pan-Canadian party whose support grew in this election. We offered Canadians new energy, and they in turn have given it to us. No party got everything they wanted in this election, and that includes a mandate for their particular platform. But that's not to say there is no mandate coming from the voters. In fact, there are two. One, the people of Canada have told us to work together for the good of the citizens of this country and all Canadians. And two, the people of Canada have told parliamentarians to listen to the people of this country for a change and to act on their priorities. Les Canadiens et les Canadiennes ont donné au parti 2 mandats ce soir.
Canadians have given 2 mandates to this party tonight. First of all, they have told the party that they will have to work together with all people. And secondly, Canadians have told parliamentarians that they must listen to the people of this country and consider their priorities.
I've had the opportunity to spend the past 20 years bringing people together of widely disparate views. And I've seen the progress that we can make when we respect each other and work together. So tonight, I'm calling on every party, every leader, and every MP to remember, maybe politics would work better if we listened to people more. And maybe politics would work better if our actions in government were consistent with our words on the campaign trail. You know, minority parliaments have given Canada good government. We achieved our flag, our national housing program, our pension plan, and our public health care. New Democrats responsibly played our part in those victories, and we will responsibly play our part in victories to come. Mr. Martin said he didn't like Mr. Harper's change. A good thing there's a positive kind of change around then. Because we can build a Canada that works for women and men, for First Nations and new Canadians, for young and old, for all of us. Nous défendrons ce qui compte pour vous.
We will defend the values you hold dear, such as jobs, health care, and the environment. We will defend human rights, the human rights of all Canadians.
We
will build a Canada that doesn't leave anyone behind, with Canadians who are anxious to share their vision with others, for the betterment of all Canadians, of young people, Aboriginals, for all of us.
Working people and progressive Canadians have a stronger voice tonight than they have had in more than a decade. We began this campaign saying the NDP was on a roll, and you proved that that's true. We said that we would campaign harder and better than ever before, and you made that true. We said we would win victories throughout this great land, and you made that come true. There's a good reason. There's a good reason to hope, and hope we will. So thank you all. Congratulations. Let's celebrate. Tomorrow the work starts. Good night. Bonsoir tout le monde. Merci beaucoup. Merci.
Jack Layton. Jack Layton talking to his supporters in downtown Toronto, the Metro Toronto Convention Centre, headquarters tonight for the NDP. Big night for Jack Layton as the party gets 24 seats, roughly double their numbers from last time around so far. There's still a number of ridings to be decided, but also, as Layton pointed out, double the vote totals they had last time as well. But perhaps more importantly, they're in the position now to have real impact in this next Parliament if they couple forces with the Liberals, formally or more likely informally, in terms of making this next Parliament work. You see the numbers added together, give them 159 in total. A majority situation would have been 155 for the Liberals if they got there. Now they need help for the Parliament to be controlled. Here we are on Parliament Hill in the nation's capital on what has been another one of those historic nights for this nation, as the people of Canada have decided the kind of Parliament they want. And as we check the clock out, we're told that Stephen Harper will be speaking at about midnight Toronto time, about just around 10 o'clock in Calgary. So in central Canada, the action still goes on here. We want to update you on a number of ridings right across the country, actually, where prominent Canadians are running, where the race is either being decided or is still very much up in the air. This man took a lot of hits over during the campaign. Paul Martin's Quebec lieutenant. He has been elected in the Montreal riding of Outremont, one of the ridings that Donna Dasko was looking at in her voting day survey. Donna, if you could say in a sentence or two, what was the issue in that riding, or what could have had an impact to give Jean Lapierre
Well,
win
the
tonight?
sponsorship issue took the Liberals down from their heights to where we ended up. Jean Lapierre was not a positive candidate. He was a problematic candidate. But in the end, people in that riding said they were voting for the party, and they voted for the Liberals, and that's what we see right here.
Okay, well, moving from Outremont to Newmarket Aurora, this one is still yet to be decided. We have Belinda Stronach in the lead in Newmarket Aurora, the candidate who finished second to Stephen Harper in the Conservative leadership race, vying for a spot in Ottawa in the next Parliament. She has the lead at the moment in Newmarket Aurora. Moving now to Charleswood St. James. This is one of the so-called star candidates for the Liberal Party. He is in second place, trailing by almost 400 votes. That's Glenn Murray, the former mayor of Winnipeg, who left the mayor's job to run for Paul Martin in Charleswood St. James, but he's trailing to the Conservative in that riding. In Edmonton Centre, boy, this one has been so back and forth in the last hour. If you've been following on the right-hand screen, you've seen she's been up, she's been down. She's used to all this. Keith, as you were saying, Anne McClellan, the Deputy Prime Minister, probably hasn't even broken into a sweat yet watching these results, because
No,
this seems to happen every time.
This looks really, she's got a 34-point lead. She's probably dozing off now. Got her feet up and lighting out the thank you cards.
A little over half the polls reporting in Edmonton Centre. Still a ways to go yet. Well, that's never a good sign when you see the screen go to black. But nevertheless, though that's an update on some of the prominents still at play. John Reynolds, the Conservative candidate out in BC, a major figure in that party, still in a race out there. He's been back and forth, somewhat like Anne McClellan. Last time I checked, he was leading in that riding. So overall, the numbers, 134. There it is right now. Vancouver Sunshine Coast. John Reynolds has the lead. But as you can see, it doesn't get too much smaller than that. A 5-vote lead for John Reynolds. This, I think, would be a surprise. Reynolds, a well-known figure in the Conservative Party, going back decades, really, an old PC Tory from the 70s, then went back to BC in provincial politics, came back through the Alliance Party in the mid to late 90s, and has been a figure, including being a interim leader of the party through the various leadership campaigns that have taken place over the last few years. John Reynolds in quite the fight in Vancouver Sunshine Coast. All right, our political pundits, our panel, been very patient here for the last little while. Keeping in mind that Stephen Harper will be speaking in about 15 minutes, I want to try and understand, as Donna and Alan made very clear, there was a point in this campaign where things started to turn away from the Conservatives, it seems, slowly building up into the last couple of days of the campaign. And I want to try to understand why. I'm not sure it's as simple as saying suddenly Paul Martin was doing everything right, or the Liberal attack ads had an impact. I'm sure both of those are. But what happened to the Conservative campaign? How, Tim, could things be looking so good and then suddenly turn around like that?
Well, I go to a point Alan had mentioned earlier about brands. He talked about the Liberal Party having a well-known brand. As we've discussed often here tonight, our party is less than 8 months old, new to the market, if you will. I think it got off to a good launch in terms of the product in the first 3 or 4 weeks of the campaign. Our competitors put out some tough ads that forced people to ask questions about our party. And I think one of the questions that we were probably a little bit longing in, to be very blunt, was on the issue of experience. I think that's probably where we've fallen down a little bit, and that is only accrued through events like this evening. I think on the whole, though, to put it in context, this has been a pretty good night for us. We're at 93 seats at the moment. I think we can hold our heads quite high and look forward to preparing for the next election and continuing to grow the party. For a product launch, we've launched our product pretty well.
Okay, some would argue that one of the things that went wrong is a lot of your candidates were speaking a different message than your leader was. And even your leaders sort of went off message, started talking about majority possibilities, which refocused the campaign as well.
Well, I think a little bit of that gets back to the experience point, too. as to candidates going off message, I think the one thing where the Liberals were a little bit more skillful than we were was in pointing out when this happened, because I could, as Mike knows, point to a number of Liberal candidates who've said things that are as offensive or as out of step as their leader. Again, unfortunate that these things happened. They probably did hurt a little bit, but they're all looked at and used as a learning experience for the next time.
All right, Don, what was the point in the campaign? Obviously, you're happy tonight. Things worked out well for you, but you did see this shift between the parties represented by the gentleman on either side of you mid-campaign. From the NDP perspective, what happened there in mid-campaign to make things turn around?
What's interesting to me is that we held our vote, and even with the Liberals pushing so hard for New Democrats to leave their preferred voting intention and go with the Liberals, it didn't happen. It hasn't happened in this campaign. And if you look at the seats in British Columbia, it's really interesting for me to see that the Liberal star candidates that Paul Martin appointed there, they didn't go through a Democratic nomination process, they're not doing very well. And I think British Columbians said, we don't like this. This doesn't feel right to us. This appointment from on high, from Ottawa, it's certainly not in the British Columbia tradition or a Democratic tradition. And I think the Liberals paid a price for that in BC.
Mike, did it backfire, the whole sense of trying to convince those who were supporting the NDP to abandon that plan and vote Liberal, or did it in fact have some impact?
I don't think you can really come to that conclusion. I mean, if you look at the dramatic change that took place in the last week, I mean, certainly the advertising deserves some credit for that. But I think also there was a significant volatility in the electorate. I mean, they really were struggling with the decision they had to make, and I think many of them waited until the last couple of days to make that decision. I think another factor, to be honest, is the complete lack of energy of the Harper campaign in the last week, where he seemed to just sort of shut it down, go into his bubble, go home. Well, Mr. Martin was very aggressive and very energetic and traveling across the country, and I think a lot of people sort of wondered what Harper was doing. I mean, for somebody who was just a week earlier claiming that he was on his way to a majority government, he almost seemed to give up. But I think ultimately the electorate got what they wanted. I mean, I think the electorate wanted to have a minority government. They wanted it to be a Liberal minority government, but they didn't want it to be unfettered, but they didn't want it either held captive by the Bloc Québécois. And so they ended up, I think, in a place where the vast majority of Canadians are comfortable. I mean, that they've got a workable minority government that's going to serve them well in the months and years ahead.
Okay, we'll be back to this in a minute. I've got to clean up some unfinished business. Ian Hanomansing is in Vancouver and has the latest results from British Columbia for us. Ian.
Well, Peter, it's windy on top of the CBC building here in Vancouver, and the winds of political change have been sweeping right across the province. Let's look at some of the seat changes in BC, and you'll see the Conservatives are down, and it's the Liberals and NDP who both have picked up seats in this province. That other, of course, Chuck Cadman, the former Alliance MP. Some of the surprising pickups for the Liberals in this province include the riding of North Vancouver. Not a big margin there, but a big enough margin to make Ted White, who is a former Reform and Alliance MP, the former NP, and Bill Bell, or Don Bell. Bill Bell was a former candidate there. Don Bell, the former mayor, is now the Liberal MP for North Vancouver. Esquimalt-Wanda Fuca, Keith Martin has been elected. He, too, along with Ted White, was an Alliance and Reform MP, but he switched parties, unhappy with the policies of the new Conservative Party. He said that he expected a tight race, a three-way race, but that ultimately he would prevail, and he's right, of course, on all three counts. In Burnaby Douglas, what's interesting about this list of candidates is who's not on the list. Sven Robinson, longtime representative of this area, but in the end, he was took a ring from an auction house, charged criminally, and Bill Sixay, Sven Robinson's longtime assistant, 3 months ago had no plans to run for the House of Commons. Now he's heading there as the NDP Member of Parliament for Burnaby Douglas. Lots of close races, though, still in this province. Newton North Delta, that's the Surrey area, just sort of southeast of Vancouver, and Gurmont Grewal, the incumbent Alliance MP, is trailing there very close. His wife, however, in the nearby new riding of Fleetwood Port Kells, also in the Surrey area, has been elected for the Conservatives. So still a possibility of a husband and wife team from British Columbia, but Nina Greywall's husband, as I say, is still in one of those very close ridings. And Peter, it's still, what, about 8 minutes to 9 here in British Columbia, so still some counting to be done and some very close ridings here on the West Coast.
Okay, watch that wind. Ian Hannah-Mansing reporting to us tonight from Vancouver. Well, we're pleased to say that Jack Layton has joined us from Toronto tonight, fresh from his own personal victory and that of his parties, and we should start off by congratulating you on that fact, your own win tonight, Mr. Layton, and the position you seem to have put your party in. We say that that's, I guess, the twin achievements you wanted to make: improve the party's position, win your own seat.
Thank you very much, Peter, and I want to thank all the Canadians who've given us their confidence. And clearly we have a lot of work to do in this Parliament. It's time that we had a Parliament that listened to Canadians, and we'll be doing our part to attempt to make that happen.
Now, usually at a time like this, on an evening like this, leaders talk to each other to offer their own congratulations. I noticed you did publicly to Paul Martin. Have you talked to him on the phone tonight?
We haven't had that opportunity yet, but I'm sure we will, and I look forward to those conversations because, you know, Canadians now expect a Parliament that will deliver on what people talked about during the election, and our job will be to make sure that that happens on many of the key important issues like environment and health, investing in our communities, and of course keeping our public health care system public.
Now, obviously, this is early on election night, and there's a lot of thinking to be doing in the next few days, but I'm sure you've had to spend the last couple of weeks, while not perhaps publicly admitting it, at least considering what your options were if the situation unfolded as it has right now. When you add your totals to the Liberal totals, it puts the two parties combined in some form, giving them control of Parliament. I assume this is something that Mr. Martin is going to want to talk to you about at some point. Do you know what your bottom line is in any discussion like that?
Well, you know, Peter, I want to sit and meet with my caucus. We have some wonderful new parliamentarians in our caucus, and we need to sit down together and establish those priorities to consult widely on the priorities. And of course, we did talk about the 8 commitments in the election quite clearly, so I think people could expect that we would be out there fighting for those very commitments, for a green Canada, a Canada that takes a leadership position on achieving Kyoto targets, that starts building affordable housing again, that keeps our healthcare system public and invests once again, that says no to the Star Wars program. Lots of those sorts of ideas are the kinds of ideas I'll discuss with my caucus, and my guess is we'd be bringing those kinds of issues forward in the days and weeks ahead.
When you look at your platform versus the Liberal platform, there are some similarities, perhaps not in the details, but certainly in the headlines. What are the kind? You just spoke to your supporters and to the nation at large through your speech on the stage, talking about those past coalition governments, or not coalition, not formal anyway, but the past minority governments where Liberals and NDP worked together on some programs that had a significant effect on the way this country operates. What do you see in the current platforms where there are openings of that nature where you could work together?
Well, we'll sit down with our caucus and have a close look at those things. I don't want to speculate too far on that right now, Peter, but I think people know that the NDP is deeply committed to the issue of health care and keeping it public, for example. We've brought forward ideas like pharmacare and home care, child care. These are fundamentals, but really I do need to speak with my caucus because I have a new team now, and it's the team that I'll be working with in that House. We have great talent there. Super to have Ed Broadbent back and Alexa McDonough, and then we have, of course, some newcomers who will bring a lot to our team. And I want to show them the respect that they should receive as having been elected by their citizens as we make those decisions.
What's it going to be like sitting down in a caucus where 10% of its members are former leaders of that party?
Well, we're the kind of party that gets along, so I think it'll be just fabulous, actually.
Listen, good of you to talk to us. I know you got a lot of hands to shake there in that room tonight, and we do appreciate it. And it's too bad you didn't end up in sitting next in caucus to your wife, but I'm sure Olivia Chow will have an important role to play in the new Democratic Party in the days ahead.
Without doubt. Thank you very much.
All right, Jack Layton joining us from Toronto, and we do appreciate it. Heading from Toronto out to Calgary to get the latest on the situation in the prairies. Carol McNeil has been watching all this as the sun begins to set over Calgary. Carol.
It takes a long time for the sun to set in Calgary, Peter, but we have been watching lots of interesting stories here in all three provinces. But one I want to pay particular attention to tonight is Paul Martin's picks. Let's start with the party standings in the prairies where it is right now. The Conservatives hold a total of 47 seats, elected or leading in 5. That represents a 7-seat lead over going into this election tonight. The Liberals are at 5 and the NDP at 4. Now, Paul Martin had a handful of people that he really approved of, if not directly appointed, to run in this election for him in this area, but it is not working. The star candidate tonight, Glenn Murray, the former 2-term mayor of Winnipeg, the first openly gay mayor of North America, very popular in his riding, a real star candidate, was not able to pull it off in Charleswood St. James. Stephen Fletcher is going to Ottawa instead. Stephen Fletcher for the Conservatives. And an interesting note on Mr. Fletcher, he will be the first person with quadriplegia as a result of an accident several years ago to hold a seat in the House of Commons. And Peter Carney of the NDP came in last of the three of them. Taking a look at Edmonton East, Peter Goldring is going to Ottawa for the Conservatives here. Again, John Bethel was the Liberal pick. He was appointed by Martin, the son of Judy Bethel, who held a riding in Edmonton and in '93. He was hoping to pick that up. He was a big campaign organizer for Paul Martin's leadership campaign. He was not able to pull it off in Edmonton East. One more riding to show you tonight, and that is the riding of Lethbridge. Ken Nichol, the former provincial party leader, the Liberal Party leader in Alberta, party of 7, by the way, was not able to pull it off for Paul Martin in Lethbridge, Alberta. The hopes are dashed here. Rick Casson is returning to Ottawa as the MP for Lethbridge. So Paul Martin's picks not really having much of an impact tonight, Peter. In fact, no impact at all so far.
All right. Thanks very much, Carol. Just to update once again, those 2 ridings that the Liberals did hold in Alberta. David Kilgore has been re-elected in his riding in Edmonton, but Anne McClellan is now trailing. Back and forth riding of Edmonton Centre. Anne McClellan now trailing by, well, about 50 votes or so in Edmonton Centre. That one is not ready to call yet. Let's go back to Saskatchewan. We heard earlier in the evening, we saw Ralph Goodale for a minute giving his speech to supporters. Once that finished, he had a chance to talk to our David Common. Here's that interview.
Peter, certainly, Peter, of course, I am here with Mr. Goodale, the finance minister here in Regina, Saskatchewan. Mr. Goodale, certainly you have personal success tonight. What about your party's success? Where do you go from here with a minority government?
Well, we're obviously going to have to work very hard to deliver on the mandate that we've been given by Canadians. We very much appreciate that mandate based upon the platform from the election. But we obviously recognize as well that with that mandate, Canadians also sent a message that we have to absorb very carefully, and we will in a thoughtful, constructive way, and we will do our very best to provide the kind of Canada that Canadians want based on the vote and based on the platform.
And what about a partnership with some other party in order to support what you're going to try and do in your agenda?
Well, I wouldn't expect any kind of formal partnership. But we will obviously need to work with other parties and other individual MPs in the House of Commons to make the very best public policy agenda for Canadians. That will be more challenging without a majority, but we have been through this experience in the past, not recently, but there are some of us around that remember what that was like in previous parliaments, and I'm sure that we can make this parliament work.
Mr. Goodale, thank you very much. Peter?
All right, David, thank you. David Common talking to Ralph Goodale, the Minister of Finance, who secures his victory tonight in Wascana. Well, the clock has ticked past midnight here in the nation's capital, looking down at a Liberal minority government tonight. The latest numbers, and they will still change here and there, but overall the big picture is the Liberals in with a minority government tonight. 136 leading or elected at this moment, most of those elected. 95 for the Conservatives, trying to inch towards the 100 mark, but it's going to take some turnarounds and a number of ridings for them to get there now. The Bloc Québécois, a big evening for them, 54 of Quebec's 75 seats. That's the same number that Lucien Bouchard achieved in 1993 when he was leader of the Bloc. The NDP at 22, and Chuck Cadman, the independent running in British Columbia, is in the lead in BC as well. So let's check in on a number of other developments as we're continuing to watch this riding, West Vancouver Sunshine Coast, where John Reynolds, a major figure in the Conservative Party, is trailing by, look at that, 1 vote. With 65 of 257 polls reporting, so there's lots of counting to take place yet in this riding, but this has been back and forth throughout the evening, and 1 vote separating those two at the moment. In Palliser, you have Dick Proctor, well-known figure in the NDP, is trailing here, but once again, this one is a real close one. A lot of close ridings across the country tonight. The Conservative candidate has a lead of just 8 votes over Dick Proctor, well known in Saskatchewan, also well known in Fredericton. Andy Scott, the former Liberal cabinet minister from a couple of terms ago, current cabinet minister again now, had to resign after Dick Proctor overheard a few remarks that Andy Scott, who was then the Solicitor General, made about the APEC inquiry. Boy, does that seem like a long time ago. Anyway, there's the latest update on that situation. Where did we want to go now? Let's go to Toronto. Don Newman has been watching the Ontario story unfold. 106 seats at stake. The Liberals did well here tonight, built their victory, their minority victory, on it. Don.
Well, you're right, Peter. They did indeed. And with 106 seats, there's still 4 in play, still 4 very close races. Let's take a look, though, first at the vote share in Ontario, see how it broke down. There you have the Liberals with almost 45% of the vote. The Conservatives, well, just over 30% of the vote. The NDP, they had the biggest increase in their vote, 18%. And others, 5.8. Some of that, the Green Party, they'll get some money probably out of that. Let's look at the close ridings. Here's one in Oshawa. This one's been going back and forth between the Conservative Colin Carey, who is a businessman in Oshawa, and Sid Ryan, the New Democratic Party candidate, who, of course, is a vice president of CUPE, a well-known Labour figure in Ontario. This was a Liberal riding, but it's not going to be a Liberal riding tonight, but we don't know if it's going to be the Conservatives or the NDP. Newmarket Aurora, this is Belinda Stronach. She was trailing. Now she is ahead again, 512 votes over Martha Hall Finlay, the Liberal candidate there. This is a new riding. 196 of 210 polls, a 512 vote lead. It's a lead, but not enough yet to declare that Linda Stronach has that riding. This is another very close riding in southwestern Ontario. Middlesex, Kent, Lambton. Rosemary elected in 1993, a 161 vote lead with 221 of the 230 polls in. Bev Shipley is a local municipal politician there, and he is giving Rosemary a big run tonight. So that is what is happening. Look at this, Simcoe Grey. Talk about another one that is really close. 13 votes. Paul Bonwick holding on there. Helena Gerges, she worked for the Conservative Party at Queen's Park. She ran provincially in the 2003 election. Did she run in Simcoe Grey? No, she did not. She ran here in Toronto in Trinity Spadina. She has now moved, as you can see, to Western Ontario, where she's doing very well tonight. Only 13 votes behind Paul Bonwick. So still 4 ridings very much in play, and because it is relatively close, that could make some changes as we look at the bottom totals there. But as you say, a good night for the Liberals, but still a few ridings in play.
Okay, thanks, Don. So many ridings, so close right across the country. There are going to be some automatic recounts in more than a few if things continue along that pattern. An automatic recount kicks in. I'll give you the formula a little later because it's kind of confusing. But nevertheless, there will be some recounts, some automatic and some I'm sure other candidates may ask for them. Rex is getting ready, but I got to show you something. I promised to do this. We're supposed to be doing a little bit of the history of this building. All through this place, you see, well, the kind of like gargoyle things, figures on the walls. There's a myth around this place. They're called grotesques. That's the name they actually use for these. They're not really that grotesque, but that's the name they give them. Now, the myth around these buildings is that the sculptors who worked on this place after the Great Fire at the end of the Second World War, when they rebuilt the building, the sculptors put their own faces into the walls in some of these little figures. But you know, that's not entirely true. Most of these are MPs who couldn't get their faces on paintings on the walls around here, because you got to be a prime minister or a senator to get that. So many of these are former MPs from 80, 70, 80 years ago. This chap's name was Murphy. I actually looked him up. But in fact, there are a couple, they say over on the other side, on the Senate side, where they have never been able to figure out who they were, because they don't match up with any pictures from that era. And so that is where the myth comes from, or the old story that some of the sculptors themselves carved their faces in. You know, and I want to believe it because I think that'd be a good thing, that you got away with being able to do that. Right now, I was just checking up on him. He's upstairs. He was doing a little carving himself, trying to get his face up there. Rex Murphy is standing by with your emails and some of the thoughts that you have about what we've witnessed tonight.
Speaking of gargoyles and grotesques, yes, here we are. That was a wonderful segue, Peter. I appreciate that. Before I go to one of the key emails about the pollsters and polling, I think this is a really succinct email. Hi, me. I voted Liberal, but now that I see that they're going to win, I'd like to change my vote. Could you hook a brother up? That's from James Donnelly in Waterloo. Why were the polls wrong? This is candid to the point of almost pain. I can answer that question. I was asked, and I lied. I said I would vote one way and ended up voting for a different party. Why? Because I wanted the party to think that they were going to win. I wanted them to believe it so much they'd throw their true colors, and they did. They started to discuss transition. Which party are we talking about? And there's one more, a very, very short one. Mark and Rosie in Vancouver. The reason why the results of the election have confounded all of the polls is that my wife, in support of the Privacy Act and to practice her skills, lies to pollsters that call the House. Gargoyles and grotesques. Back to you, Peter.
Well, we better bounce that one around.
Yeah.
we got to give the resident pollsters here, although we got to make it up front and clear here that neither Alan nor Donner were doing public polls in the last week of the campaign that suggested the kind of numbers that we were reading, plus in those seat projections, which have come in for all kinds of criticism in the final days of the campaign. But how difficult is it? I mean, is there, you know, how do you know whether or not somebody's lying to you when you start doing these surveys?
Well, maybe Alan can answer that.
No, I mean, there are ways to check. I mean, the most simple thing is a goodness of fit test, where you look at your sample against the total population for which the sample is drawn, and you can see if your sample fits on top of that real profile. You can also ask things like, describe the dwelling that you live in, and actually send people to see. By and large, people don't lie. Telephone is a remarkably honest medium. Having said that, there are some things that you can't find anyone who admits they're homosexual on a telephone survey, for example. I mean, Stats Canada can't to this day on telephone work. So you have to be a little bit dubious about all of the results that you get. But that by and large, if there isn't a vested interest in telling a falsehood, most people will come forward with the truth.
I think Alan's right, and I think what we have to look at is to go back and look at the polling data and maybe take a look at those soft voters, those people who weren't tied down to a party, and see if, you know, maybe there was something there that would give us insights into what we're seeing today. I think on the theory that people don't lie to pollsters, the only other theory we have is that people changed. And people are allowed to change their mind. If they told us on day one they were voting Conservative and they changed their minds and they're voting, then they're voting Liberal, that's allowed, you know. And so,
see, I thought the spinning only went on this side of the table here. Because you guys are, your profession, you know,
I don't do political polling anymore. I retired on that. But Donna's polls, Donna's polls that were done yesterday and today are right. I mean,
actually, that's a good point.
The Outremont is a little off, but all the other four are right on. The seat projections is a completely other issue, though, and that this is dangerous stuff that the newspapers are dealing with. Because the way you do this is that you take a base of the last election, and then you do your polling on top of it. So, for example, let's say that the Conservatives were at 10% last election in Toronto, and your poll says that they're now at 15%. What you'd do is you'd increase their vote in 5% in every one of the 28 ridings. Well, first off, that's a little of a fallacious premise anyway. But in this election especially, what they were doing is they were combining the old Canadian Alliance and PC vote together. And that was the basis. And that's why you had all of them projecting all of these Conservative seats that never came to pass.
Absolutely.
And it hurts the profession.
I never took those seriously. I think the seat projections are just playing around with the numbers and having some fun, and people took them much too seriously. I mean, that is not a polling exercise. That's a modeling exercise. And I think pollsters get into trouble when they spend a lot of time doing this.
And your models are only as good as your premise. In this instance, the premise is absolutely faulty.
And you can change the popular support by 1 point, and you can get 10 more seats or whatever from your model. So it's a very problematic exercise, and I think it was taken way too far in this campaign, in this election.
All right. What do you think of that, Keith?
Well, I wonder if anybody's going to pay a price for this, and I'm not suggesting that pollsters should, but I think that, because of the campaign we've just been through, where all of this did play a significant role, there are going to be consequences, and my guess is that it's going to be consequences mainly for journalism, because journalists ultimately make decisions about what to do with this information.
Well, and they make decisions about it, but it also, has really, really covered the news coverage, because what happens is you get a poll right after the debate. Harper wins. And so the next day, the entire tenor of the news coverage was Paul Martin is doing this because he lost the debate last night. And you don't even find out what exactly he did. Just everything is viewed through that particular filter. And I think there is going to be some introspection, and much needed introspection, about some of the methodology that we're using. It's harder and harder to get a hold of people on the telephone, and more particularly how the polls are used in the media and what influence that might have on Canadians understanding what's going on in their real world.
Okay, I got to stop you there because we got to get to Montreal. Susan Bonner is giving us a final assessment, or a close to final assessment, on what happened in Quebec tonight, but that was a fascinating discussion, and I'm sure we'll pick it up some more. Susan, go ahead.
Yeah, Peter, some of the numbers, a couple of the numbers could change here in Quebec because there are a few close races left, and we're going to tell you about them. First, we're going to start with the overall picture in the province. There you see the Bloc Québécois leading or elected in 53 seats, with the Liberals at about 22. Now, that's not so surprising in the last few days of the campaign. This is what people were sort of expecting to happen, notwithstanding all the poll discussions. Now, let's look at the riding of Papineau, where Pierre Pettigrew, the Minister of Health and Minister responsible for intergovernmental affairs, is in a tight race here tonight. It's been going back and forth all night long between the Bloc Québécois and the Liberals. In the riding of Shefford in the eastern townships, the Bloc Québécois is in the lead here tonight, and Diane Saint-Jacques is trailing the MP in the area. Again, very close. You see this one. And in the riding of Nunavik, this is under review, Peter, which means there'll probably be a recount here because Guy Saint-Julien, who's the Liberal MP for the area, he's leading by just over 200 votes, which will probably mean a recount in at least one riding in Quebec so far tonight. There you go, Peter.
All right, Susan, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Beautiful night. Looks like it's shaping up to be in Montreal, weather-wise, and an exciting night for the Bloc Québécois. Liberals winning 22 seats in the province of Quebec, which is some big losses for them. However, not as many as some people had forecast in the days leading up to this vote. All right, here's the situation in Newmarket, Aurora. Not over yet, but Belinda Stronach, with not too many polls left to report, has a lead of 512 votes. She finished number 2 to Stephen Harper for the Conservative Party leadership. And we're going to swing from the Belinda Stronach. Just talking to her supporters, we hear Stephen Harper is heading into his area in Calgary as well. Here it is, arriving by bus in Calgary. Stephen Harper winning his own seat, improving his party's position, holding the Liberals to a minority situation, not quite reaching the 100 mark. Questions, obviously, will be raised about the Conservatives' last couple of weeks of their campaign. Did they falter, or did they suffer extensive damage from the Liberal attacks that took place in the 2 weeks following the debates? Questions, though, will be raised, Keith, about the last couple of weeks when Stephen Harper started talking about a majority, when some of his candidates were speaking offside on issues, causing new focus on his party. Having said that, as Tim Powers mentioned earlier, a party that only was born half a year ago holds the powerful Liberal machine to a minority situation.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I mean, Tim's point is a valid point. The problem is that in the course of the campaign, expectations got raised unreasonably high. And so there is likely widespread disappointment within the party about the result tonight, and there really shouldn't be. But whether there'll be consequences from that disappointment, I don't know. I think that's a reasonable question to ask. And what I mean is whether there are going to be, a lot of second guessers, Monday morning quarterbacks around people who Mr. Harper is closest to and who he has depended most on in terms of trying to bring this party together, because you also have to understand that this has been a very centralized party in terms of developing policies and campaign strategy, and there may be an impetus toward holding people to account.
Okay, but 25 seats they stand on the verge of achieving in Ontario. If you'd said that 6 months ago, that this party was going to break through in Ontario, get 25 seats, people look at you and say, you're crazy. Yeah. Now they've done it. A while ago, a few weeks ago, it looked like they may do better than that. But you got to keep these things in perspective, the ups and downs of the campaign. They do make the long-awaited breakthrough in Ontario. And that's what cost the Liberals their majority government, that plus the impact of the Bloc in Quebec. So let's listen in on Stephen Harper, see what he has to say.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Good evening. Bonsoir. Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, tonight our new party has, in a very short period of time, made historic strides across this country. I want to thank all of you, everyone in this country and in this room who has contributed to this movement forward. Beginning first of all, of course, with the most important people, my family, and my wife, Lorraine, who has been with me at my side this entire campaign. I also want to thank all the friends and supporters and workers here who have been with me in some cases so many years, and who have tonight secured re-election to Parliament for me in the constituency of Calgary Southwest. Thank you very much. Your work in Calgary Southwest has been a model for our candidates from one end of this country to another. I am extremely proud, and we should all be proud of our candidates in every region, successful or not, who have fought a tremendous battle from coast to coast this 5 weeks. I will admit that I feel some disappointment tonight, but you should feel none. Together, in a very short period of time, you have accomplished a unique feat in Canadian history. Men and women who only months ago were prepared to battle each other, or were prepared or had given up the fight entirely, put aside their rivalries and their histories for the sake of the team and the future of this country, and have deprived the Liberals of the majority they thought they were entitled to. We have increased our seats and broadened our base across this nation. I congratulate you for this remarkable achievement, and remember that until someone someday achieves a majority, the fight is not yet won or lost. Je veux en particulier féliciter et remercier nos candidats et candidates au Québec, de même que ceux et celles qui les ont appuyés. Leur engagement est d'autant plus remarquable que notre parti a encore beaucoup de travail à accomplir dans cette province. Au cours des jours, des semaines et des mois qui viennent, j'inviterai directement les Québécois et Québécoises qui croient en la Confédération canadienne de se joindre à nous. Encore, de plus, je félicite les chefs des autres formations politiques qui ont mené une bataille acharnée. I congratulate the leaders of the other parties for a hard-fought campaign. To Mr. Duceppe and to Mr. Layton for their idealism, and I congratulate Mr. Martin on the mandate he has received. Mr. Martin has been given a mandate, but it is a modest mandate. I accept this mandate. We will accept the verdict of the Canadian people. But we will remind the Liberals they have been sent a message, and we, the loyal opposition of this country, will continue to hold them accountable. We will work in this minority parliament to build a better future for our fellow citizens, to make our parliament work in their interests, and to ensure that your priorities are the priorities of your national parliament. Canada has known minority governments before, and at all times, Canadians expect and deserve stability and certainty, and we as an opposition will act accordingly. But make no mistake, we will continue to fight for the principles, the policies, and the direction that we put forward in this campaign. We will fight for a stronger economy with lower taxes and more jobs, and for an end to scandal and greater accountability in Ottawa. We will fight for better health care, and we will fight to work for and with and not against our provinces. Nous travaillons en faveur de meilleurs soins de santé.
We will work for better health care, for greater cooperation with the provinces, for the elimination of the fiscal imbalance, and better achievement, better outcomes for patients.
In our country and in our world, by fighting for stronger criminal justice and a stronger Canadian military. And of course, we will fight the long battle for our ongoing commitment to democratic reform, to ensure that the people of this country and in the regions of this country have more say in their central government. In the months ahead, we will work for and in every region to move our party and our country forward. We will fight for the unrealized potential of Atlantic Canada and to give Atlantic Canadians greater control over their resources and their development. Nous redoublerons d'efforts au Québec.
We will redouble our efforts in Quebec to provide Quebecers with another option than centralization or separation.
We will work to keep building our support in the Ontario heartland, ensuring that our tax dollars are treated with respect and that we remain a competitive nation internationally. And we will keep up the fight, ladies and gentlemen, to ensure that the voice of the West is someday heard and accepted in the corridors of power. The new Conservative Party will be a party for all Canadians, and it will be an alternative for the next government. This is our responsibility and our obligation, and we will fight for it every step of the way. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. God bless Canada.
Stephen Harper with his comments to his supporters in Calgary tonight, a toughly worded speech about the situation as far as he sees it. Congratulations to the other party leaders from Harper, but a clear message to Paul Martin that he sees the mandate that Martin has received as a modest and diminished one, clearly from the mandate he started with a majority situation handed to him by Jean Chrétien. So clear from Stephen Harper that the fight is going to continue inside the House of Commons before the next election. And as he said, until there's a majority government, the fight continues. Mike Robinson, I want your thoughts on this. Let's bounce this one around the table here a little bit. Because Harper raises a good issue. He said the people of Canada sent a message tonight to Paul Martin and the Liberal Party. What do you see the message as?
No, I think they did send a message. I think the message was that, well, they do believe that Mr. Martin is the best person to lead the country. There are things that have happened in the past which they're uncomfortable with, that have left them disappointed, left many of them angry, and they're sending a message that they expect the Liberal Party to, in fact, treat the taxpayers' money with the greatest of respect, to govern with a lot of sensitivity to the fact that people out there are sort of unhappy with the fact that not everything has gone as well as the way they wanted to. And I think that this election is a message it's a message to any government that's been in power for 11 years that is carrying on with a mandate. And I think that the Liberals will learn from this. I mean, there will be a sensitivity to the fact that people out there are giving us a more limited mandate than they had previously.
Tim, what was the message?
Well, I think that it's a two-step thing for us. I think Stephen has made it clear that the Liberal Party has been given a tryout by the Canadian public, if you will. We're still sort of sitting on the bench but have the opportunity to come in if things don't work out. And I think you will see Stephen, you saw him express some disappointment because we did get close, but I think you will see him work more vigorously to put ourselves in a position to defeat the Liberals the next time around. And the message is we're ready, we're willing, and we're going to work to get better so we can form government.
Don, what do you see the message was tonight?
I think the message is definitely a wake-up call to the Liberals. I think people were unhappy over the broken promises for the last 10 or 11 years, and when the Liberals came out and started re-promising the same things over again, it really hit their credibility. So I think it is a wake-up call to them to deliver on the things that they've made commitments about, like childcare, like Medicare, improving access to health care for Canadians across the country. All of those issues, I think, are incredibly important. And I think that it's going to be an interesting time because they don't have an opportunity now to push anything through the House of Commons. They don't have that kind of a majority. They've got to work with the other parties in the House of Commons, not just with the New Democrats, but with all of us, with all of them there. So it's going to be a very interesting time, and I think some very positive things can come out of this for Canadians.
But I think it's also a double-edged sword. I mean, I think what the other message to the opposition parties is we want this Parliament to work. I mean, we want you to also cooperate. I mean, we are giving Mr. Martin a sufficient mandate that we would expect that you would cooperate with him as he tries to move forward with you to implement the agenda that Canadians in overwhelming numbers have obviously bought into. I mean, there were two very clear visions of the country that were put in front of the Canadian people, and they've chosen overwhelmingly one vision. And I think that's where all the parties will be expected to work together to make that happen.
But it is a fine line on how you move forward from here. Let's face it, for the vast majority of parliamentarians who come into Ottawa, they have no sense of how minority governments work, how delicate things can be, how there really isn't such a thing as a strong minority, as Joe Clark found out, just inches away from a majority, lost it within months.
But we've had some very progressive governments. We've had some very positive governments in minorities. I mean, the 72 to 74 period, the Pearson years when he was a minority constantly as Prime Minister. I mean, Canadians they're not fearful of a minority government. It's up to parliamentarians, it's up to all the parties to make it work. And if they do set out to make it work, it can be a very effective government. I mean, I don't take any great lack of heart in the ability of this government to move forward on its agenda in a minority situation. I think that's more than achievable.
Alan, you've watched politics for most of your adult life. When you see the way this one has unfolded tonight, the message we're hearing from Stephen Harper about the kind of attitude he's going to take into this new Parliament on a night where his party has clearly made some breakthroughs, not the big one they were hoping for. What do you see as the big message, and how do you suspect it'll be dealt with here?
Overwhelmingly, the message is time for a change. And it's not just time for a change to the incumbent Liberals, that they wanted to get a good kick in the arse for all the problems that it encountered. You got an electorate that's very, very frustrated with the total electoral system. I mean, I'm looking here, our voter turnout has barely gone up over our record low in 2000 in what was clearly a much more competitive political environments. There's a disengagement with politics. Secondarily, there's a view that that government just isn't responsive anymore. Not just to people's wishes, but that they know that they can't go back to what governments used to do, which was everything for us. But we can't have a situation like we also used to have, where government is just a necessary evil. People are looking for a new role for government. They have great doubts about whether their governments have the creativity and the resources and the will to do things differently. And I think this is the message. Do things differently. It's time for a change. If you continue on the old rules, we'll continue to smack you down or ignore you entirely.
Donna, do you want to weigh in on this?
Well, I go back to the cynicism we saw at the beginning of the campaign on the part of Canadians, and I look at this campaign, and I don't think it was a great campaign in the sense of a public education experience. I saw a lot of negativism, and I'm not sure Canadians learned that much about issues, which is supposed to be one of the things that happens in a campaign. I think about all the issues that were not discussed in this campaign, Aboriginal issues, even the environment. There's so much in the federal realm that people were not engaged in, and so, you know, at the end of this, I'm kind of disappointed in the experience that Canadians had in the campaign itself, and I mean, ameliorated by the excitement of the race. But at the same time, I don't think it was a great experience for people and for being informed about public life.
Well, you know, I got to tell you that certainly is one of the things that surprises me, and possibly Keith as well. That there's so much focus in this campaign, before it started, during it, on the part of all the parties, on a part of the media as well, to try and engage the public. Took it as a task to try and get people more interested in voting, to be a player in this situation that was unfolding. And yet, as Alan points out, the early analysis of the turnout figures suggests there's hardly been any movement at all. And trying to understand why, I mean, there's lots of things that we're going to be talking about in the next few days, including, as we mentioned earlier, the role of journalists and pollsters in all this. But why didn't people go out to vote? I mean, what happened here? Everybody was pushing that button so hard. Why didn't it work? Any ideas here?
Let me throw one thing out. We noticed last week, a lot of people noticed last week, that the advance polls had heavy turnouts and that there were lineups and so on, and people wanted to interpret that as meaning that there was a greater interest in politics. I think what it really meant was there was a great interest in taking summer vacation. I'm hopeful that the timing of this election had something to do with voter turnout, and that voter turnout really wasn't driven down by the same factors that drove it down in the fall of 2000, and that if it had been timed differently, I'm hopeful maybe people would have taken a greater interest in the campaign and come out to put a ballot in the box.
That's possible, but it almost sounds like we're building an excuse here.
Again, I can understand why the public watching the campaign were cynical. I mean, it was treated very much as a horse race. It was focused mostly around who's up, who's down. There really wasn't
Except
very
on
much
one
of an
network,
effort.
I seem to recall.
No, I think
it wasn't
to be
polling.
honest, I think there was actually a great deal more responsibility, and I honestly do believe that. I mean, the debates were frankly just a shouting match. I mean, nobody could have watched those debates and come away having seen any light. They saw a lot of heat, but they didn't see very much light. And I think we have to rethink some of the ways that we cover election campaigns. I think we have to rethink the way we engage leaders in debates to, in fact, provide information to people. I think that I don't blame people for being very cynical about what they saw unfold in front of them over the last few weeks.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, too, in the age group 18 to 30, who came out and voted there, because a lot of the coverage also has been catered to this particular group to try and get them interested in politics. And I think to Mike's point, I think if they look at this particular exercise and they look at a lot of the negativity that came forward, they find it frustrating and it reinforces cynicism. So we all have to work a little bit more to try and get to a place where debate is meaningful and interesting in the same vein.
Donna? Or Dawn, I'm sorry.
Donna?
Yeah.
I think it is dangerous for our democracy when the turnout is going down in every election, and it's worrisome. There's a number of things. I think one of the things the New Democrats put forward was the idea of proportional representation. I think it's something they'll be pushing in the House of Commons as an alternative, something that maybe would engage voters in electoral reform that way. But it is again, you had the debates, as Mike said, and guys kind of yelling at each other, and there wasn't much there to engage people who were watching the debates. We persevered through them, those of us who are into politics all the time, but I doubt that very many people who weren't totally engaged themselves already in the electoral process sat through those debates.
All right, just Alan, just hold on one sec. We're just seeing Paul Martin arriving at Liberal headquarters in Montreal. And he's got to be a happy man. The overused phrase one assumes of the next few days is, he suffered a near-death experience through this campaign. Things were looking very bad a couple of weeks ago, and they weren't holding it back. He talked himself about the difficulties he was having in the campaign. But as it turns out, he wins on the evening, a minority situation going into this 5 or 6 weeks ago with a majority position. The hope was obviously to make that happen once again. Ends up with a minority, so you go backwards and look at this from 5 weeks ago, you'd say this is a failure, but they're acting like it's a success tonight for Liberals.
Yeah, I'm watching that board down below, though, and we have a lot of tight races still out there that haven't been settled, and the majority combination number between the Liberals and the NDP is slipped down to a single seat now.
135 and 21 of the 156. But there's no doubt the person who still holds the keys to the office upstairs is Paul Martin. How long those keys will fit in the door will depend on how long this Parliament can hold together. We're going to be hearing from Paul Martin, obviously, as he speaks to his supporters in Montreal and to the country, and we'll listen to every word. But Alan, why don't you tie the knot for us on this issue of why this, once again, did not seem to engage a larger number of Canadians in the
well, it's because I believe that voter turnout is simply the canary in the mine shaft of democracy. It's indicative of something that's a much larger malaise, and that part of the problem is that, once every 4 years we give people an HB pencil and a piece of blank paper and invite them to put an X, and we consider that democracy. The inability to engage people throughout the course of government activity, the inability for us to interact as neighbors, as citizens, a sense of community, that's the root cause of the difficulties we have now. And so if all as we do is aim at enhancing turnout electorally, we're not getting into the root cause of the problem.
All right, Paul Martin taking a sip from a glass of water and ready to talk to his supporters and to the nation about tonight's election result.
Chacun de vous. Merci d'avoir attendu si tard. C'est formidable.
Thanks to all of you for waiting so late. Thank you for being here.
D'abord, je crois que vous allez comprendre.
First of all, I think
je veux remercier les
you
électeurs
will understand
de la Salle-et-Marne
that
pour m'avoir
I
donné
want to thank all my constituents in this riding for giving me once again for the 5th time the privilege of representing them in the House of Commons.
À tous ceux et celles qui ont fait la campagne
to all of those
ici à la Salle-et-Marne,
who carried out this campaign in La Salle-et-Marne, to all of those who went door to door and put up signs, and to all those who gave me their time and energy, once again, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Let me begin by thanking the people of La Salle-et-Marne for giving me the privilege of representing them in the House of Commons for a 5th term. I am very honored to work in Parliament on your behalf. To Sheila and my... I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good. To Sheila and my 3 sons, to Paul, to David, and Jamie, and those who are now accompanying him. This is what happens. Without your support, without your enthusiasm, the fact is that without my family's support, none of this would have been possible. It wouldn't... To my sons, I say thank you. It wouldn't have been worthwhile without you. And to Sheila, it's impossible for me to describe.
You're right,
Yeah,
Bob.
yeah. Sheila has not only been with me throughout my whole, actually most of my life. She was the girl next door, but she's... She has been with me, obviously, throughout my whole political career, but I don't think ever like this. 36 jours de campagne,
36 days on the campaign, in the bus.
She has sat beside me on a plane. She has sat beside me on a bus. She has... Let me tell you the worst of it. In the car on the way down, I said, did you get tired of listening to me make the speeches? He said, no, I just got tired of hearing you rehearse them time. Yes. I also want to express my appreciation to the campaign team. Je veux remercier ceux et celles qui ont travaillé
all of those that worked so hard here in Quebec and throughout Canada.
The headquarters in Ottawa, the campaign team on the road, in cities and communities across the country. And they know who they are. But let me just say to them, to those who shouldered this campaign, to those who made it happen, to those who for so long have worked so hard, let me just tell you that without you, none of this could have happened. Your work and dedication has been inspiring, and I cannot thank you enough.
And to all of those who were elected as members of Parliament for the first time or who were re-elected, my congratulations.
Tonight. No matter what your party affiliation, you should know that your country is indebted to you for your service to Canada. And on a more personal note, to those of my Liberal colleagues, à ceux de mes collègues vraiment libéraux,
my Liberal colleagues who won't be coming back.
I want you to know that it has been an enormous honor to serve with you and that you will be missed enormously. Finally, j'aimerais dire un mot à propos de ceux et celles qui ont travaillé dans les campagnes.
About all of those people who worked on campaigns across the country. I've just thanked those who are here, but I want to thank everyone in Canada.
And the campaign workers across the country, not just the Liberals, but candidates and workers from all of the parties. We cherish our democracy, and our democracy would not work, it would not thrive without the efforts of political candidates and those who help them, who are really the unsung heroes in all of this, in their attempts to win a privileged place in the House of Commons. So on behalf of all Canadians, I'd like to thank those of you who over the last 36 days have made democracy work in Canada.
Now I just spoke to Jean Duceppe and Jacques Layton, and I think I will be talking to Stephen Harper later. And I congratulated them on their energetic campaigns. We fought the tightest campaign in many years. Canadians had a choice between parties with very different visions of Canada.
Canadians have sent us two messages today. We as Liberals have lost votes. We have lost good members of Parliament. But an election is a time to pass judgment. And the message in this regard was unmistakable. Canadians expected and expect more from us. And as a party and as a government, we must do better. And we will. I pledge that to you tonight. At the same time, millions of Canadians have cast their ballots in support of the kind of Canada that we as Liberals want to preserve and to strengthen. A progressive Canada. One that is dedicated to building on the values and the priorities that have been handed down to us. We must move to address the issues that matter most to Canadians, to strengthen health care, to reduce waiting lists, to build a national system of child care and early learning. And that is what I pledge that we will do tonight and throughout the next mandate. Take two things with us to government. The message that Canadians have sent to us tonight, a message that we must do better. And the second message that I take with us to Parliament is the positive vision that we have set out before Canadians. And that also is the vision that we take with us to government.
Giving us the responsibility to govern, Canadians have shown us their confidence. We accept that confidence, and we intend to work with determination and diligence. We will work very hard every day to earn your confidence.
Have entrusted us with the responsibility of government. We will take on this responsibility with vigor, with determination, and with diligence. And we will work each and every day to maintain and to earn their trust and confidence. But we also recognize that given the makeup of the House of Commons, that Canadians expect even more from us. They expect us as members of Parliament, as political parties, to work together to make Parliament function on their behalf. They expect us to work. Yeah, you can clap, because that is exactly what we're going to do. To work together to achieve real and tangible progress for Canadians. And speaking as Prime Minister, I pledge to do just that. We will work hard as a government to represent the views of Canadians. We will work hard to build the kind of Canada that they will be proud of. And we will do it while demonstrating honesty, integrity, and a deep respect for taxpayers' dollars. That is a responsibility that we take.
Throughout the campaign, I said that I believe that Liberals believe in a solid government, a government that works for the force of good to ensure that all have equal opportunities, and a government that helps those who need help. To be really effective, a national government must be listening to the views of all those across Canada and represent all the regions, represent all the provinces. We lost votes in Quebec. We have understood your message. You expect better from us. And let me tell you that we will give Quebec its place at the national table. Together, we will make Canada a country where all Quebecers feel welcome and where they will want to stay.
rester. Pour accomplir leur rêve.
To stay, to
Rester.
fulfill their
Parce
dreams.
que c'est ici.
To stay
terrain de
because
l'avenir.
this is
C'est
the country
ici
of the
où les
future.
Canadiens et les
This
Canadiennes
is where
de partout au
Canadians
pays
from
peuvent
all across the
accomplir ce qu'ils
country
veulent
can
pour les autres,
fulfill their
pour les
dreams
enfants,
for
pour leurs
themselves,
petits-enfants.
for their children
This
and their
country
grandchildren.
is indeed the place where the best and the brightest from the round of the world want to come. And we will indeed make it that way. The standard. For me and for a number of us here, the campaign ended around 9 o'clock this morning when we landed at Pierre Trudeau Airport. We've been on the move, traveling across this great land for more than 24 straight hours, from Halifax to Gatineau, Quebec, to Toronto, to Winnipeg, to Vancouver, and then finally back to Montreal. I touched the Atlantic Ocean, and I touched the Pacific Ocean. And I saw this magnificent country from 30,000 feet and from the window of a bus. I saw its people. I felt their optimism about our country. We have so much to be proud of, and we have so much to look forward to. Let me tell you why I made that trip on the last day of the election campaign. I made it because I wanted it to be known. I wanted to be known in the most unequivocal of terms that I am going to govern for every single region of this country without exception. Ours will be a national government with strong voices and representation from every part of Canada. We will move forward now to govern on behalf of all Canadians, to take action on the issues that matter most to the people of this country. Nous allons aller de l'avant.
We will move forward. We will move forward as a government on behalf of all Canadians. This is the first minority government we've had in a generation. We don't really know much about this, but we will meet this challenge and we will attain our objectives, which are to strengthen and enhance our social programs. We will put forward our belief in fiscal prudence and of the need for Canada to speak with a strong voice on the international stage.
In a generation. It's unfamiliar terrain. But we are up to the challenge, and we will embrace it. We will make it work. We will make it work for all Canadians. We will move forward in our goal to preserve and strengthen our social programs. We will move forward in our steadfast belief in fiscal prudence. And we will move forward in our desire to speak with an influential and independent voice on the world stage. And we will move forward to build, to unite, to bring Canadians together. We will move forward to make a great country greater still. Thank you.
Paul Martin talking to his supporters in Montreal tonight as he succeeds in forming the next government, but it is a minority situation. Keith, a number of things to talk about there. Keeping an eye on those numbers below on the screen. As you see, the NDP number has been dropping here, combined with the Liberals together there at 155, which is the number you need for control of Parliament. So it's going to be interesting. A lot of still close races, a number of them, and clearly some recounts that are going to take place as well. But keeping an eye on that number. I want to hear Paul Martin looking so visibly happy and excited to declare right out of the gate when somebody yelled from the crowd in his speech. He said, "I feel pretty good." Now, who would have thought that 6 weeks ago, leading a majority government, as he entered the race, that 6 weeks later he'd be saying he feels pretty good and clearly meaning it about a minority situation.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the thing about it. He clearly does mean it, and I think everybody understands it too, because I think anybody who followed the campaign realized how unlikely this outcome seemed for most of the campaign.
Well, making a lot of promises there about what the future must hold if the Liberals are going to hold on to power. He said he heard the message that Stephen Harper was talking about, that there was a message sent tonight. The Canadians want them to try harder and want all parliamentarians to try harder to make things work in Ottawa. Quick thought from our panel on this, the Prime Minister's comments. So, Tim, why don't we start with you?
Well, I vote that if we stay on late AM, we might get up to 100 seats first and foremost. So let's go.
You are creeping up as well.
We are creeping up there as well. I think, look, the Prime Minister deserves to be happy tonight. It looked rough for him for a while. I think he's got to listen to the people. We all do, in fact. But we will be there to challenge him and make sure that he keeps his feet to the fire.
Dawn, what were your thoughts of that speech?
I thought that the Prime Minister was very gracious and he was reaching out to the other parties in the House of Commons, and I think that bodes well for the future and working relationships in Parliament, hopefully.
Well, Mike, the nice words being said by your opponents there, so I guess you'll take the critical tack on that.
No, I think his remarks were very appropriate in the circumstances, and I think just in terms of just picking up on something you said earlier, the Prime Minister knew coming into this election campaign it was going to be tough. I mean, if you look back on the eve of the election, the polls were still saying it could be a majority, it could be a minority. And he came into the campaign understanding that he was going to have to go out there and win every vote. And so I don't think there was any sort of big surprise that at the end of this exercise that he would end up with a minority. And as you say, 2 weeks ago, I think that this looked like the most positive result that one could possibly imagine. So he deserves to be happy tonight. He's run a great campaign. There's no question in the last week the campaign that he ran was the difference between having this kind of comfortable minority and being in a situation where we would have been here till 5 in the morning counting up the very last ballot. So I think he has a reason to be happy and a reason to be very proud.
Do you think he comes out a stronger political figure, a stronger politician as a result of what he went through here?
I think there's something to that. I think as you say, having a brush with death is never a bad thing to happen to a politician in terms of understanding that this is actually another opportunity. This is an opportunity for it to go and accomplish the things he wants to accomplish as Prime Minister, and he's been given a mandate now to go out and do that. And I think he'll take that very seriously and go out and do the things that he wants to get done.
So have you worked out a deal with Dawn here yet on how this is?
She's actually teaching me how to use my computer. It's been very helpful.
Well, it's always the first step, right? All right. Well, Paul Martin leaving the room in Montreal, where he just spoke to the nation and to his supporters, giving them an indication of how things will unfold here now in the weeks, months to come. Don't expect any sudden recall of Parliament. This place is probably going to be quiet for a couple of months while things sort out. Can't wait too long in a minority situation. Joe Clark waited over 4 months, and that became an issue itself. Sir John A. Macdonald, once waited 8 months. Mackenzie King over my shoulder, but over Keith's shoulder. Sir John A. Macdonald back there, but he was in a majority situation, and so it did not become an issue. But one assumes on this one that Paul Martin can't wait too long before meeting the House, but he's first of all got to put a cabinet together, and we'll see what changes are there and how much reaching out, Mike, he does to the old Chrétien side of the Liberal Party that he basically shut out of the play in these last few months. Do you expect that he will be doing some reaching out
I think that he'll absolutely put together the best cabinet he can from the talent that's available after this election, and it will be a meritocracy. It'll be the best people to serve the country. I would like to say, if I can, I mean, just on a personal level, how disappointed I was to see some of the people who have served with Mr. Martin go down to defeat tonight. I mean, some of the ministers like Bob Speller and Gar Knudsen and Stan Keys, and I'm sure and Hélène Charrière, who I think had tremendous potential as ministers, and disappointed to see them. And as I say, I hope I haven't missed anybody, but it's one of those campaigns where you
missed about 44 of them. Who lost their seats.
Fair enough.
That's okay.
Fair enough, but it is.
Yeah, all right, good point. We want to just recap a number of the races that have been settled in the last little while, and some of the ones that are still up for grabs. Anne McClellan, after watching this all evening back and forth, she ends up with, for her, a huge win, almost 700 vote lead over the Conservative Laurie Hahn. So Anne McClellan is the winner in Edmonton Centre tonight, returns to Parliament. She, of course, is the Deputy Prime Minister, and there was much talk in these last few days that she was not going to win, as there often is in the campaign for Anne McClellan. Always seems to face that kind of discussion. Now, this one is going to come as a surprise, I think, to an awful lot of people. John Reynolds, a longtime MP from West Vancouver Sunshine Coast, a former interim leader of the Conservative Party back when it was called the Alliance. John Reynolds loses tonight here by about 1,500, well, about 1,200 votes to the Liberals, and I'm not sure how many people were forecasting that loss. John Reynolds gone from the nation's capital. Here in Newmarket, Aurora, Belinda Stronach. We have declared the winner in Newmarket, Aurora, with just a couple of polls left. Her lead significant here at over 600 votes. So Belinda Stronach finished number 2 in the Conservative leadership race, will be heading to Ottawa and will be a presence on Parliament Hill. Moving on to Vancouver Kingsway. David Emerson. It's David Emerson is the Liberal candidate there. Much discussed, much talked about as a potential cabinet minister. Beats the former NDP MP in Waddell. So I expect to see Emerson in a new Martin cabinet. He was recruited personally by the Prime Minister, and it's expected that he will end up in a senior cabinet position. From Vancouver Kingsway, it's on to Vancouver Island North, where this one is not settled yet. Look at that, 4-vote difference between the Conservative and the NDP candidate. This one seems almost certain to be heading for a recount. That's one of the numbers that keeps bouncing back and forth on your overall totals for the NDP. They've been in the lead, out of the lead through the evening. And also here in Newton North Delta, once again in British Columbia, you've got the Conservative in the lead. It has been declared this is one half of the husband and wife team that in fact will be in the House of Commons. This is the Gruel family who will be heading to Ottawa. Much talk about Jack Layton and Olivia Chow that didn't work out, but the Gruels are coming in from BC, heading to Ottawa, both representing the Conservative Party. Fortunately for them, it would be interesting if they were running for different parties, how that would all work out. But in Fleetwood Port Kells, Mrs. Gruel and Mr. Gruel, the two of them, heading to the nation's capital representing the Conservative Party. So for the first time in our history, we have a husband and wife team on the agenda, or on the roster inside the House of Commons. Let's Rex, can you hear us down here?
Our gargoyles are us. We're here.
What are they saying?
Well, the result is as surprising as most of your panelists down there. To most people, I suppose they listen too much to the message of the polls, and therefore the fact that there is, in relative terms, a strong minority government, that particular shot, threaded through the whole thing. I was touched here by those last two speeches, Mr. Harper's and the Prime Minister's. It seemed to me, and perhaps even more particularly Paul Martin's, that was the kind of performance with the confidence, force, conviction, and fluency that if you'd probably seen it in the last 7 or 8 or 9 days, there wouldn't have been this ambiguity. Likewise, Stephen Harper, from a much different and I think a much more difficult rhetorical position tonight, delivered a very strong, gathered, forceful address. I thought we saw the best part of the campaign in the two speeches of the main actors at the very end of the election.
All right. You got a good point.
I'm going to make some more faces up here now.
Yeah, I bet you are. Yeah, we've been hearing the chipping going away up there, the masonry. Yes. All right, I want to get some last thoughts here from Alan Gregg and Donna Dasko, who have been crunching the numbers for us this evening, looking at trends and things. What are your thoughts overall, Alan, first of all, on what we've witnessed here tonight?
Well, at the risk of being accused of making happy talk, I mean, this is
that'd be a first.
This is a really good election. I mean, we have a much more healthy electoral political system today than we did yesterday. That Paul Martin can be grateful that he looked into the abyss and the abyss didn't look back. The Conservatives have made a breakthrough in Ontario, are a much more national party now than they ever have been before. The NDP are real. They are on the scene. Also, Donna might want to comment on this. It actually appears that Jack Layton personally may be starting to attract young voters to that party, which would be very good for him, and also probably good for the system to the extent that we know they haven't been participating. So I think it's a good result. I don't know how long it'll last. I think that this parliament's going to be difficult, as all minority parliaments are, and we could be into having another election within a year.
Okay, well, actually, the average life of minority government through our history is about a year, 4 months, about 16 months. So it wouldn't be surprising at all if we were in within a year. Donna?
Well, I see the election as a referendum on the party in power, and I think that I really think that's what this was. I think people, those potential voters, people who go back and forth between parties, were really struggling with their motivations. On the one hand, wanting to punish the Liberals and angry and upset and disappointed with the Prime Minister. On the other hand, the alternatives didn't look very good, and people struggled within themselves, and they came down massive. Those people came down massively on one side, and that was to continue to support the party in power. I think, although it wasn't predicted, nobody predicted the Liberal New Democrat sort of scenario. But it is a combination we've seen before in Canadian history, and I think people are familiar with how that works. I think it might have a longer life. It's got potential to have some stability, and I think it's going to be a great political environment to watch and to be part of. I think it's going to be very exciting.
It's always exciting when you can never take anything for granted, and minority governments certainly are born of that nature. So we'll see how that plays out. Want to quickly recap how the parties have done. When you look at the country as a whole, where their representation is coming from, keeping in mind there are a couple of seats, as we showed you just a moment ago, still to be decided. Let's look at the NDP's strength nationally and where it's coming from. In Atlantic Canada, you've got 1 NDP seat in New Brunswick and 2 in Nova Scotia. So that's it for Atlantic Canada. Nothing in Quebec. 7 seats in Ontario, one of which is the leader, Jack Layton. Got 4 in Manitoba, shut out in what is considered the birthplace of the NDP, Saskatchewan, and 6 in BC at the moment, 1 in the Western Arctic, which is the riding where Ethel Blondin of the Liberals has held that seat in the past. That's how the NDP shape up across the country. Moving from the NDP to the Conservative strength, having a look at that, 2 in Newfoundland and Labrador, 3 in Nova Scotia, 2 in New Brunswick, nothing in Quebec or in PEI. 24 in Ontario, so they got the breakthrough they were looking for in Ontario. They thought perhaps it was going to be more than that a couple of weeks ago, but you can't take it away from them. At the end of the night, they've made the breakthrough in Ontario. They got roughly a quarter of the seats available to them. In Manitoba, the Conservatives have 7. In Saskatchewan, 13 seats for the Conservatives. And in Alberta, 26 of the 28 seats are under the Conservative banner. And in BC, they are holding 20 seats with a couple still too close to call as a final result. Nothing in the north. There's your Conservative strength. Finally, the Liberal Party of Canada. Where does it get its strength from? Pretty well everywhere in the country, with the exception of Western Arctic, that one seat that is leaning NDP or is heading to the NDP column right now. Very quickly, 5 in Newfoundland and Labrador, 6 in Nova Scotia, 4 in PEI, all 4, 7 in New Brunswick, 21 in Quebec, which isn't much of the 75, but it's a lot more than some people have been suggesting in the final days of the campaign. 75 in Ontario, still the big power base for the Liberal Party, 3 in Manitoba, 1 in Saskatchewan, 2 in Alberta. They hold both those seats. 9 in BC, which is a pickup of a couple for them in British Columbia, 1 in Yukon, and 1 in Nunavut. So the Liberal Party has, in fact, representation from right across the country. Let's look at the share of the vote. As the evening draws to a close, the Liberal Party, roughly 37% of the votes cast today went towards the Liberals, just under 30%, 29.5% for the Conservatives. Those numbers echoing the polls, as we said, just before the campaign started. The NDP just over 15%. The Bloc Québécois, with all their strength in Quebec, obviously, but nationally shows up as 12.6%, a big night for the Bloc at 54 seats Other parties represented a total of 5.6%. We'll be able to do a breakdown on that through the next 24 hours, see how especially the Greens did, whether they got their 2% needed for future funding. All right, that's a recap of the big picture overall. Quick last thoughts from Don Newman, the CBC senior parliamentary editor, who has been standing by in Toronto watching all this unfold. Don, what do you make of the overall picture tonight?
Well, the overall picture, really, there is a breakthrough in Ontario for the Conservatives, but it's not as big a breakthrough as obviously they had wanted. And if we had seen them do better in urban Ontario, we would have had a closer race. They were really strong in eastern Ontario and part of central Ontario. A couple of seats down that Niagara Peninsula, but in the Toronto area, they got no seats in Toronto proper. They got a few in the belt around Toronto, and basically that was it. So until they can find a way to win in urban Ontario, they're going to have a hard time breaking through. For instance, they only have 24 seats at the moment. They thought maybe they would have 40 as a minimum. If you took another 16 or so and put them away from the Liberals and onto that total of 96 that we're looking at the bottom there, we would have had the close race that everybody was predicting, where it would have been just a couple of seats apart. But the failure of the Conservatives in urban Ontario, particularly in the Toronto area, but in urban Ontario in general, they have one seat in suburban Ottawa, they have a seat in Niagara Falls, and those are basically the urban seats they have. So that is going to be the problem for the Conservatives as we get into a minority parliament with obviously an election probably maybe 2 years away, but probably not an awful lot more than that. They're going to have to figure out how to get a message into urban Ontario, particularly in the Toronto area and the Toronto belt, if they want to do much better the next time round.
All right, Don, thanks very much. As usual, Don on top of the story in Toronto for us tonight, but also giving us the broad national perspective as well. Quick last thought from each of our panelists here in terms of the political parties. Tim Powers, why don't you start?
In the context of what's happened in the Conservative movement over the last 11 years, tonight is a very significant positive achievement. The other point I'd like to make is with the growth in Ontario of our party, I think you have now a new influence within the parliamentary caucus of the Conservative Party that will be healthy and help the party grow in the right direction.
All right. Don Black, the NDP.
The NDP vote has grown in every region of the country quite a lot. We've certainly increased our seats. New energetic leader. I'm looking forward to this parliament and watching how things progress for all Canadians.
All right. Mike, looking a lot more relaxed than you were 6 hours ago.
I think the really positive result tonight is that there's representation in the Liberal Party from every region of the country, every province in the country, and I think it allows Mr. Martin to put together a truly representative cabinet that will serve the Canadian people very well. And I think that the way in which the results have turned out, I think will force Parliament to in fact take this responsibility collectively very seriously. I don't think Canadians want to go back to another election anytime soon. I think they expect parliamentarians to take their judgment, to act on their judgment, and to get on with the job of providing good government. So I think there's a burden on all the parties to listen to what the people had to say tonight.
All right. Thank the three of you. Being incisive, informative, and good-humored throughout the evening, which is always important on a night like this. Keith Bogue, our Ottawa Bureau Chief. You know, we thought we were going to be here all night.
We're getting off early.
Yeah.
Feels great, eh? That's the good message about
Yeah, right.
No, I would echo Alan's comment. I think that the big story out of this tonight might be a little difficult to see in all of the details, but it is the restoration of competition to our political system. It's badly needed and it's very welcome. I also think, I'm not going to go into details about changes to the election financing system, but because of those, because of those, though, I think what you'll find is that there is not a great incentive for any of the parties to have another election soon. So we may live with the parliament that we are seeing now for quite a bit longer than you would normally expect, given the record of minority governments in Canada. What that might do, to put a bow around it all, is make politics a lot more interesting and keep people engaged in it. And all of those things, I think, are good things for politics in Canada.
All right. Keith, thank you for your comments. Our panelists, our pollsters, and our analysts throughout the system, and of course our reporters from coast to coast to coast who have been working on this night to bring us the results. Special thank you to our technical staff who've been, as they always are, fantastic at putting something together in a remote location. And we thank the House of Commons staff and the staff of the Parliament buildings here in the nation's capital, who have once again invited us into their home, which is really all of our homes here at the buildings of Canada, giving us the opportunity to broadcast from such a spectacular natural set. If you're in the nation's capital all this summer at any time of year, you got to drop by here. There's so much history oozing from every pillar and wall in this place. We've been lucky enough to show you a little short glimpse of it all. So that's it. The final numbers, 135 are the final at this hour, 135 for the Liberals, 96 for the Conservatives, 54 for the Bloc Québécois, 22 for the NDP, and that one independent candidate who has won his seat in British Columbia. We're going to hand over now for a very special program. It's going to take you through the next few hours, settle a few of those final votes. Coming out of Vancouver with Ian Hannamansing, who has been reporting the BC votes for us. But his special After the Vote program is going to do a lot more than that. We're looking forward to watching it. Ian, it's over to you.
Well, Peter, after an election filled with surprises from coast to coast, we bring you a late-night election special with a few surprises of our own. Live network-wide from here in British Columbia, lots to talk about and some interesting people to hear from.